Hello, good filter-free America listeners. We are together once again. We have drunkenly stumbled into each other's arms in the world of podcasting. So I guess technically not each other's arms. We've drunkenly stumbled into each other's ears, or me into your ears. I really can't hear anything that you're saying at all whatsoever, which is probably a good thing in most cases, because probably you're saying some things sometimes that I don't want to hear, and I'm sensitive. Welcome to the show, guys. Real fast, let's knock out the sponsor. Let's talk about the sponsor, because as you know, the show would not be possible without the help of our one true blue sponsor, simplewebsite.us. Simplewebsite.us. Say it one more time with me, simplewebsite.us. What is simplewebsite.us, you ask? I'm glad you asked, because I need to tell you anyway, and I was going to tell you whether you asked or not, so, whatevs. Simplewebsite.us is the place you need to go if you want to build a Squarespace website. Now, why do you want to go there? Why don't you just go to Squarespace, just build it? Well, here's the deal, okay? I get it. You're an accomplished individual. You're probably decently educated, and you could probably figure out Squarespace on your own, no problems whatsoever. Boom, you could do it, right? That's fine. I'm not questioning your ability to do that whatsoever. What I'm saying is that if you go to simplewebsite.us, number one, you can go there and get some free resources, things that are just like tips and video courses to help you, just help you a little bit, independently build your own website on Squarespace. And those free tips and resources are like the name implies, they're free, right? You just use them, okay? Boom. All right? That's an option. Another option, when you go there, maybe you want a little bit more help, right, than just like the free stuff, right? So you contact them, you tell them, hey, I just need a little bit of help here. I got it, most of it all figured out, but I would really like you to kind of, maybe use your screen share technology and like help me with this one specific area of my Squarespace website build. Could you do that? Yes. Simplewebsite.us can do that as well too. Or you can go all out, and just say, hey, look, I would like you to build my website for me, and I am just going to sit back and judge your work, right? You can do that. That's true. You can do that. You can go to simplewebsite.us, contact the wonderful boys and girls that are working over there, and then say, hey, look, I want to build a website, right? And then just tell them what you want, and they'll make it happen. They will do it, and they'll do it faster than you can do it if you've never done it before, or if you're not familiar with the Squarespace building site, because they're experts in it. They've done it all. Anything that you can do on there, they've figured it out. They've done it. They've polished their skills, so you don't have to do it. You can just sit back and and just delegate and tell them what to do, and you give them the the thumbs up or thumbs down when they're done, and say, I like it, or I don't like it, either way, and that's what you do. So yeah, simplewebsite.us, simplewebsite.us. That is the sponsor. While we're talking about websites and people and stuff, I don't even know. It's kind of a segue. I'm just throwing words together. I'm really tired. It's like, what time is it right now? It's 3:46 in the a.m. on 9/11. I had to stay up and make sure that 9/11 clause didn't not stop by and bring me my 9/11 Christmas present. But whatever. I'm up. I'm recording this intro for this episode that you should be listening to today, or at least you'll get it. You'll have access to it. I can't guarantee you're going to listen to it. I'm not going to hold a gun to your head. I wish I could, because it definitely make my ratings go up, but I wouldn't do that. I'm not that kind of person. I do need more guests, though. I would like to get some more guests to interview, right? So I figure I would mention, I think I mentioned it once before on here. If you're in the Twin Cities area, right? Because I like to interview my people in like face to face, right? Like I have the technology to do like Skype interviews, and yeah, it's kind of good, but it's not the same thing. I don't know. I really enjoy the face to face, mano a mano, eye to eye, or eyes to eyes, unless the person only has one eye, then it's like eyes to their eye or whatever. Interview type style. It just feels a little bit more intimate. It feels like you get a little bit better connection with your guest. It feels better all the way around. So I'm exclusively looking for people who either live in the Twin Cities area or who plan to be in the Twin Cities area pretty soon and think that they have a story or something that's worthy of being a guest on the Filter Free America podcast. I mean, if you don't know what we're doing yet, just go look at some of the episodes. Go to check it out, see who I've interviewed so far, and say, you know what, I've got similar kind of stories. I've got similar anecdotes. Maybe something that's happened in my life, or an experience that I've had, or an occupation that I've done is something that will get me on the show, and I can sit down and I can talk with Joey on the show, and I can be not only a listener, but I can also be a guest and be part of the show. Yes, that can happen. As amazing as that sounds, we can make that happen. So what you need to do, if you feel like you have a story or you want to contact me and talk about it, or maybe you know somebody else and you want to put them in contact with me, as of right now, just email me directly at filterfreeamerica@gmail.com, filterfreeamerica@gmail.com. And remember, America is always intentionally misspelled with a K. So filterfreeamerica@gmail.com. Send me a message. Let me know what your story is, what it is you think would make a good episode for Filter Free America. And if it sounds good, we'll plan a recording. You can come here to my home studio and record, or if that's not convenient for you, and like I said, and you're still within a reasonable amount of driving distance around the Twin Cities, I'll come to you. I've got a mobile setup, so we'll make it happen one way or another. So yeah, filterfreeamerica@gmail.com. America spelled with a K. A couple comments on the last episode. To date, at least since the relaunch of Filter Free America, has definitely been the most listened to, downloaded, shared, streamed, touched affectionately episode that we've had thus far. And that was the second episode with guest and independent journalist Sam Richards. And he came on and he talked to us about the, tragic suicide of Minneapolis City employee Al Diddy. And yeah, that episode has been huge for us. Thank you very much for all the people who, number one, who've listened to it, streamed it, who have shared it. I appreciate you guys taking an interest in that, because not only is that, am I glad it's happening because it's, breathing, additional life and into the podcast, but also it's, that was a very important story. I think that was it definitely, to date, the most important podcast episode that we've done, and definitely covers a lot of the hot button issues that I have. I get very emotional about, and that you guys, if you guys are regular listeners, So yeah, I'm very proud of that episode. I think it's important. I hope everybody everybody in the world listens to it who can. And but yeah, so I hope it continues to get the growing number of listens that it's getting, and I hope you guys continue to share it and all that stuff too. But thank you all for doing it so far. It's been very helpful, and I hope it does something, anything, even a small, at least even token or of something, for the Diddy family. And if you want to know more about that, just go listen to the episode. It's too much for me to explain here at the beginning of this one, but it's definitely getting good numbers, and it's all because of you, the listeners. Keep it up. And also welcome all the new listeners. I think because of that episode, I've been doing some promoting and advertising and so forth too, but that episode had a very natural, draw of new audience members. People were sharing it. It got links to it, got retweeted by, Twitter profiles with millions of, followers. So from that, I'm definitely getting a bunch of new listeners. All our statistics, easy for me to say at 3:00 in the morning. Statistics are trending upward sharply now since the loading of that episode. And so it's definitely a growing listenership as well too. So welcome all the new listeners. Make yourself comfortable, pull up a chair, listen to all the old episodes. I hope you find more stuff enjoyable. I hope you just didn't come here thinking, oh wow, they always talk about very serious topics. No, not at all. Some of the other episodes run the gambit of other things, from everything from story of a guy about getting beat by his dad, and to another guy who he and his wife like to hire prostitutes. There's all kinds of, there's just a variety, right? It's like a variety pack of crazy, wild stories. There's debauchery, there's violence, there's crime, there's drugs. There's a little bit of everything here in Filter Free America. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you continue to listen, but welcome nonetheless. Also, I don't say this enough, apparently, I guess, because it's not getting, every other podcast you have to say it every single time. I don't, but I'm going to try to do it more often. Please, if you're a listener, if you're enjoying this show, don't charge anything for the show. All I ask in return is please, number one, subscribe so you don't miss any episodes, and number two, wherever you listen to it, wherever you Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, whatever, just go, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Give us a good rating, give us a good review, and that's helped me grow the show. That's all I ask in return. There you go. And also, doing that as well too. I've got an artist right now working on a new, revised, re-envisioned logo idea for the Filter Free America podcast. And as soon as that's done, I'm going to start getting some T-shirts done. I'm going to do some. In this logo, I've already seen the kind of the rough, and we've kind of got it in its final look. And she's going to be finishing it up now and really kind of putting the final polish on it. And it's going to look dope on T-shirts and hats and stuff. So I'm going to get some cool merch made up and stuff. And I'm going to do some prizes and some giveaways and all that kind of things. I'm going to make them available for sale as well, too. But I'm going to give away some stuff, too. So if you're a listener and a subscriber, and especially if you do any interaction with the podcast at all, whether it be through Facebook or whatever, you're going to be with people on the top of the list. I'm going to be giving away stuff, too. So keep that in mind if that interests you at all. I'm just trying to, just buy your affection. With T-shirts and hats and stuff. What else? So yeah, that was that episode. That was led to a lot of growth. And that episode talked about bad cops. There's been more bad cops in the news lately. That's been going on, right? That never stops. Never stops at all. Just when you think, okay, we can't possibly have another bad cop story. We have another bad cop story. Excuse me. Need to take a drink here. Delicious. Crazy cop stories in there. Of course, it always seems like, and I know it's not. There's always going to be people that are going to complain. It's not just black guys getting, done wrong by the police. It's everybody. And that's true. It is. It is everybody. But it always seems like there's a disproportionate amount of black dudes, kind of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to dealing with police. A lot of those stories in the news recently as well, too. It's almost to the point where, like, black guys, they just need to stay at home and not come out of the house to be safe from police. Oh, wait a minute. They can't even stay in their homes and be safe anymore. Did you guys hear the story about the police officer in Texas, a police woman? I guess she just ended her shift. She went back to her apartment building, her building, but not her apartment. She walks into an apartment building or into an apartment. There's a black gentleman in there. She thinks she's in her building. That's her story, at least. And then she just fucking murders the guy right there in his apartment. It's his apartment. She's confused. That's her story. I don't believe that for a minute. Oh, God, it just seems weird. How are you a cop? Period. Okay, never mind. No. How are you a cop and not know where your own goddamn apartment is if you're not, like, chemically impaired in some kind of way, right? Which could be a possibility. How do you not know that you're not going into your apartment? Like, when you walk in, I guess the door was open, I guess is the story now that came out, or what she's claiming, and she just walked in. How when you walk in, you don't realize, hey, that's not my fucking couch right there. That's not my fish tank right there. And that's not my dude shit laying around because I'm a chick cop and I'm walking into an apartment that's clearly not mine. But you're just going to kill the dude. It's like black dudes aren't even safe in their own apartment anymore. Police are walking into their apartment, killing them in their apartment. No warrants, no nothing. Just confused. Oh, sorry. Wrong apartment. I don't know. I had to get that out of there. So yeah, lots of cop stuff in the news. Last episode had a lot to do with law enforcement. So I guess that brings us to today's episode, where I figured the best way to cleanse the palate of bad cop stories that have been in the news and that were in the last episode was to bring in a good cop and talk to a good cop, right? Now, some of you are laughing, right? I know that. Some of you are laughing right now. Some of you are like, okay, good cop, that doesn't exist. Okay. This guy, for as well as I know him, and I've known him for quite a few years now, is a good cop. He's retired. And I think, I'm almost certain I've only known him since he's been retired. So maybe I've got a working theory here that once a cop retires and like magically they lose their evil copness. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Whatever. All I know is our guest today, he is a retired cop. And he's a pretty cool dude. Known him for quite a while. He's never done anything sketchy, right? Always been nice to me. Always been friendly to me. I've talked to him on podcasts before. He's always been a good sport, and he knows that I have how can I say this, Jelly? An aggressive point of view when it comes to law enforcement officers, right? But still, he humors me, gives me a good time, comes in, talks to me. Whatever. So he's back. So our guest today is retired police officer Chuck Gollop. Chuck, former police officer here in the Twin Cities area. He'll talk about why he's now no longer a cop. Basically, he got hurt or he couldn't be a cop anymore. So now he's like working in real estate and he does stand-up comedy as well too. So he does both of those things. So that's how I know him, is through comedy. It's like, it's not like I was a snitch or some shit. I want y'all thinking anything sideways, like, how does Joey know this cop? No shit like that. No, he's a comic, tells jokes. That's how I know him. Matter of fact, let me give you his website now. It's chuckgollopcomedy.com. Chuck, CHUCK, Gollop, GOLLOP, comedy. If you don't know how to spell comedy, get the fuck out of here. .com. chuckgollopcomedy.com. Go check out his website. Go catch him at a show. Whatever, find links to his videos, to his Twitter, all that kind of things too. And feel free to interact with him on Twitter about anything that he said on this podcast. There you go. Maybe some things you agree with, maybe some things you don't agree with, whatever. But whatever. So Chuck, we bring him in, and we're just going to be talking to him about cop shit, We're going to start out, we're going to talk about some of the more serious issues going on. I'm going to, challenge him a little bit about some of the things. I didn't want to go too aggressive with him. I know we've had some more debatey type, podcasts that he and I have gone back and forth on, but I brought him in to talk to him in a more friendly tone. But in the first little bit of the podcast, you'll hear me challenge him on a couple things, and again, he does his best to answer it. He has his point of view on things. I have my points of view on things. I'll leave it to the listeners to kind of determine from there. And then after that, he shares some crazy cop stories with me, some things that happened to him in his career, the injuries that he got when he was working, some crazy cases that he worked and all that stuff. So it's a pretty fun episode. I mean, there's, like I said, definitely some grown discussion up front, and there's definitely some interesting kind of fun stories at the end. So I think you guys will enjoy that. So yeah, our guest, Chuck Gollop, Gollop. I always call him Gollop. It's Gollop. It's Chuck Gollop. And he's a retired cop, and we'll be having a conversation with. Oh, that's the name of the episode right there. Conversation with a cop. Conversation with a cop. Okay, here we go. Filter Free America episode. Boom. Conversation with a cop. Let's go. All right. So you're retired now. Why don't you start by telling me, like, when you left the police department, what was your rank, or what was your skill? I don't know how cops work. I mean, for the most part, what was your special skill did you have like a classification? Is it like Dungeons and Dragons where you're like a level 67 sniper or something? I don't know.
My special skill was tripping a lot and getting beat up at defensive tactics classes. That was my kind of my superpower. I was a patrol sergeant at the time.
Patrol sergeant. Okay.
Yeah. So basically the watch commander for the shift.
Okay. And patrol, is that mostly traffic stuff?
Just driving around in a police car, taking 911 calls, looking like you're paying attention, and traffic.
Okay. Gotcha. I've known you for a while. You're a nice guy.
I'm okay. Let's not overstate it.
Okay, more or less. So why would a nice guy like yourself want to become a cop?
Well, you also know that I'm short. So I got beat up a lot in high school. And no. I
was going to be like, wait a minute. This is every cop story that we thought.
Exactly, I know. I met one that was over 6 feet. It was weird. And now I'm dying. Wrong tube. So
some of that mace still
yeah,
got in your
like
throat.
George Bush and the peanut now, as proof of my skills. So I got into police work because I really didn't like cops. As a young kid, I loved like the trappings of police work, the uniform. I was a huge fan of the TV show Chips. I loved all that crap. I was obsessed with being a motorcycle cop.
Were you a Ponch or what was the other guy's name?
I was the bottom. Oh no, I was. I think I'd be more of a Ponch. I'm a little more flamboyant out there.
What was the other guy's name?
John.
John, okay.
Yeah.
How fucking average.
So, yeah, great show. But and then as I grew up, I got into punk rock and kind of some counterculture stuff, and it put me at odds with the police many times. And I kind of decided if you can't beat them, join them. And that, because
you're going to take them down from the inside, right?
Yeah, that worked out well. Mostly I think cops need a little more patience with people, and I wanted to be that guy who could make a little difference and impact people's lives in that way. And of course, I did it for 25 years, so I very much became a cop. There's a certain mentality and way of carrying yourself and handling yourself that, it becomes a lifestyle. So,
did you ever second guess that? Did you either second guess your perspective of law enforcement that you had when you were this punk guy, or did you vice versa? Did you think that maybe you shouldn't have been into law enforcement? Did you ever have regrets about going into it?
No, actually, I think it served me very well. I got frustrated a lot. I just don't think like a lot of cops. And that put me at odds at times with my colleagues. Not in like a crazy, he's a rebel sort of way. Just, I just wasn't into the kiss-assy stuff. If I had an opinion, I usually said it. It often put me at odds with bosses and coworkers. And so I think when I finally retired and it was time to get out on the medical, there was no question that it was time to go. And to be honest, I don't, I'm a teacher too, and we all know those teachers who are burned out. You don't want someone who's burned out being a teacher. You don't want someone who's burned out being a cop. And it was time to go.
Was there any negatives as far as the, trying to think of a way to tactfully ask this question. Was there anything about the overall culture of law enforcement that was just, I'm kind of filtering it through me knowing you as much as I know you. I mean, we're not like deep hang out all the time, buddy friends, but I feel like I know you enough that I like you, right?
Thank you. I think.
And you don't see, I've ran into a lot of cops who I don't like, and I wonder if there's ever like, a mentality or a cultural difference in there that you had a problem with or an aversion to that was hard for you to deal with because you don't seem like that type of person.
No, I think I was probably one of the more reasonable versions of that same personality. I mean, it's you don't succeed if you don't take on that persona. I mean, you just can't survive. It's a warrior survival mindset, and I think that now that I'm out and I don't talk to nearly as many cops as I used to, it's kind of like cleansing. It's. You ever just take a week or two off any chemicals at all? No drinking, no smoking, nothing, and you come out of this haze just a little bit, and you go, "Wow, I'm out of that. And I look back and I see like I was just a little different. And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's, I'm a civilian. We were just sitting here a minute ago and you point out there's a snake in here. Well, I've been on my phone the whole time trying to catch up on business. Like, as a cop, I would never miss anything. Totally into observations and what's going on, knowing my surroundings, ready to go. And now I'm an oblivious idiot. So it's, it took a while to get there.
Right. Well, you did. You were in that cop mode. I noticed right away when you came in. This is the first time you've been in my house. So you were in that cop mode when you first came in. Like, is this a setup? Is he going to... So I could kind of tell. I was like, okay, he's a little bit on guard right now. But you do relax. The dog's relaxed you a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
just by the time you got to the snake, you were cool. You gotta.
Yeah, that's interesting because I tell you, man, I think I've told you this on another podcast, but I remember walking down the street in New York City as I was a cop at the time. Worked most of my career in uniform. You can't shed that. I mean, it is just a persona that does not go away. I was hanging out with a bunch of hippie artists walking down the street in Brooklyn, and we walked by some dudes, and they look like gangbangers to me, whatever. But they look at me, and they picked me out of that crowd of 10 people, and they said, "What's up, officer?" And I'm like, oh, my God. I'm in New York City, Brooklyn, not in uniform, hanging out with hippies. And they knew. And it's, I suppose. You probably see it to me. I'm like, I'd be the worst cop ever right now. Just not paying any attention to anything.
Some of it is obvious on, and some it's not. And then some people, they're like, look like cops, like, and then they try to have that cop look. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
And this is a weird angle that we're gonna go off on here. I one of the cars that I own is a retired police officer, right? My car's not a police officer. My car is a retired police car.
It gets great benefits,
right? Mm-hmm. It's a old Crown Victoria because I love high performance sedans, and so I'm in that kind of that car culture thing about those cars. So I joined like the Crown Victoria car forums and things like that. So when you get in there, you find two groups of people, right? You find guys who are like really into big body 4-door sedans, who like big kind of muscle car type things, and they're into the cars just because they're cheap 8-cylinder muscle cars. And then you're into these ones who are called the whackers. And they're into them because they really got a hard on for cops. And they either really aspire to be a cop, or they can't be a cop, or they're too stupid to be a cop, or whatever. And then they want to do the persona. And they're the ones that, like, when they get the cop car, they want to put all the little cop equipment in there and the little lights and stuff in there. And it's a little bit terrifying.
It is very terrifying.
Also, very, very weird story here. I don't know, you might have heard this. There was a local kid, and I can't remember his name. And I say kid, he was like in his 20s, and he was in a shared one of the Facebook groups that I was in for specifically Minnesota area Crown Victoria owners, and he was like I don't know what it's called when you're getting ready to be a cop, and there's like a
trainee,
something like that. He's in some kind of like pre-police program thing, but whatever. And so he had, not only did he have like an old Crown Victoria retired cop car, he also had the old new Taurus. He had one of each, right?
Yeah.
And he got arrested for attempted sexual assault.
Yeah,
And that's
potato.
Yeah,
attempted.
Very, very weird. Some of that happens a lot. Those guys that are those wannabe cops.
Yep. I had a couple cases in my career where someone either impersonated themselves to me or to someone else. Yeah, I had one guy.
As you were knowing you were a cop?
Yeah.
Oh, that's ballsy.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
Parked my motorcycle in the fire lane. It was a BMW, a sport bike, and I parked it in the fire lane because it was cement up next to the wall of a Target, and it says fire lane, no parking. Well, it was a motorcycle, and it was a hot day. I didn't want the motorcycle falling over with the kickstand going into the asphalt. Some guy comes up and badges himself to me, and I was in another city. I was in Burnsville. I was a Bloomington cop at the time. Opens up a badge. He goes, "Move this thing now," and he's really a dick about it. And I said, "It's a motorcycle. It's really. I want this thing moved right now." And I remember I opened the trunk of the motorcycle.
What did his badge do?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. So, and I didn't really look at it, and I assumed he was a Burnsville cop, off duty.
Okay.
But so then I opened my trunk and I go, I got one of those things too. And I remember my handgun was sitting out. I'm thinking a cop would notice my handgun was. I opened the trunk to grab something to start my motorcycle, move it.
Oh wait. This wasn't. You weren't in uniform.
No, I was off duty, personal BMW motorcycle, shorts and a t-shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you like BMWs were the cop motorcycle.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No. So and he's he badges me and I'm kind of trying to hint I'm a cop too. I move the bike and I start thinking just for a second. This guy's full of shit, and I didn't really see his badge, so I walk up to him again. I didn't tell him I was a cop yet. I pull my badge out, and I go, all right, you know what? I want to see your ID. And he goes, why? I said, well, because I'm not sure you're really a cop. He goes, I am. I said, okay, let me see your ID. And he pulls out his ID, and he's a retired, not even retired, he's a Minneapolis Police Reserve officer, which is a civilian with no police power. He has zero, I had zero actual authority in the city of Burnsville off duty. He had less than zero because he wasn't even a cop. And so I go, you can't do this. I said, you're impersonating a police officer to a cop. I said, and you can't do that. So I remember I called 911. I gave a description. They pulled the guy over and they ID'd him. So then we knew who he was. And I followed up with a Burnsville police detective sergeant at the time. And we ended up finding out, we called a good friend of mine, a very retired deputy chief from Bloomington. His dad was in charge of the Minneapolis Police Reserves. His dad was a Minneapolis cop too. And he goes, yeah, that guy, we got fired him 5 years ago. We've been trying to get his ID back. So they did a search warrant.
Holy cow.
They went up and grabbed his ID card, and he ended up getting charged through the city of Burnsville with impersonating a police officer over that.
Holy shit.
But there is a whole, and that's one of two. I had another similar situation.
So
and
what's the charge? I mean, what's the
misdemeanor.
penalty?
It's a misdemeanor, which is ridiculous because I think it's pretty high stakes, especially in this culture with shoot first, ask questions later.
Right.
I'm
as you know, I'm not the number one defender of police officers.
I've heard that,
but I respect the idea of it, and like you said, that's as dangerous as having a dangerous cop. I think having somebody portray themselves as a cop it definitely sends those messages out there and makes
crazy.
It.
And who gives a shit that? Sorry, I'm whistling. Who gives a crap that much about someone parking in a fire? No cop's going to care. No cop in the world is going to care about that. And if you do, you don't belong being a cop. That's the other reason I think I started thinking about this. I need to see that badge a little closer.
Right.
So yeah, what a doofus.
God. Those the what do they call it? They're not resource officers.
Police reserves
officers? Yeah, they're the worst. It's like.
Some of them can be. I work with some great people who care about their community and want to put some time in and help direct traffic and sit on tow trucks.
But that's the go-to place. If you can't be a cop, then you go to be a reserve or a security guard or something like that. Because that's the closest thing you can get. But reserve is the next tier down because then you kind of look like a cop and you kind of get a cop car and you kind of get everything but a gun and authority.
There needs to, and there are safeguards to make sure that you have people who are legitimately just trying to help their community. Or people who are going to law enforcement need a little experience put on a resume. You don't want the people like this guy,
right?
And those, I think, they give your police reserves a very bad name. So,
I always use the I remember his name, but it's the BTK killer.
Yeah.
He was a city inspector.
Oh yeah.
Like he would go to people's how he was like a super stickler about it too. Like he would go to people's yards and with a measuring stick and if their grass was just too long, like a little bit, then he would issue a ticket, super
creepy.
anal, and then he would kill people and tie them up and torture them.
Creepy.
Weird. Tell me about your training and what year did you go through training and what did your training consist of as far as education and then physical training, firearms training type stuff?
Okay, well, first of all, I was the biggest idiot. So if I tell my hand to do something, it's going to do the opposite. If I say left hand goes this way, right hand goes that way, it never works out.
So, they should give you two guns then.
Yeah, that I needed them because I couldn't do anything with my hands. So I was always the guy who was getting teased at defensive tactics training because I just was the slowest learner. I won't lie to you. But I did a 4-year degree from the University of St. Thomas. I actually graduated in 3 years because I was really wanting to get going. I went to a very elite tactical school called the Hibbing Technical College where I took my police academy training. It's called Skills. Did 10 weeks.
A lot of ninjas go there out here.
A lot of ninjas and alcoholics. And I did a shitload of drinking. And I came back and got hired within 3 months and was a licensed policeman at the age of 22.
Can you say what department? Do you want to say what?
Yeah, Roseville, Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did that for about 3 years, and then I went on to the Bloomington Police Department. But yeah, the training it's standard, and it hasn't changed since 1977. You get at least a 2-year degree, and you go to a 10-week police academy, and then you're eligible to apply for a police job.
2-year degree, 10-week academy.
Yep.
What can the degree be in? Is there limitations of what it can be in?
You have to have the 13 core classes that are required of a police officer. So it's, obviously, statutes and juvenile justice, criminology, those type of classes. And then beyond that, it can be in anything. And right now there are programs where you can have a degree in anything, and they'll bring you on as a police cadet. And there's a program through the state, and I think the feds even help it with it. You could be a businessman and go, all right, I'm going to be a policeman tomorrow, and start going through, taking your degree, applying that toward being post-certified, the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board, and then becoming an officer.
What about, is there any kind of specific, like an ethics class or course or anything involved in this training?
Yeah, I think, and I
don't know if I'm asking the right question, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I went to a Catholic college, so I learned a lot about being a victim. No, and so we had a lot, ethics and religion were a big part of that, and I'm a Jew, so that makes no sense whatsoever that I went there. But I would say, as I understand it, I think there is at least an ethics class. I think that is part of the core curriculum for those 13 classes. I'm not sure, but it's, college ethics. It's like
so not specific to law enforcement
yeah.
Okay.
And they may have changed the curriculum. There's a policing class, and obviously there's ethics is a big part of that as well. But yeah, it's kind of embedded. I think the hope would be, and I think it's more so with a 4-year degree than a 2-year degree, but that the general process of going through school is about giving ethics and learning and communication skills to people, like all what they should have on their tool belt when they go into law enforcement.
So now the 2-week academy training.
10
weeks.
Intense.
10 weeks, sorry.
10 week.
What does that consist of, roughly?
It was a lot of drinking. It was the Old Howard was my favorite bar. Also there, and it was that was how to run a radar, all the defensive tactic stuff, how to shoot a handgun, how to shoot a shotgun, how to do a traffic stop, how to do a high risk stop, DUIs, how to do the field sobriety testing and getting certified. So we actually left with a whole bunch of certificates for all those different classes, and the post board determines what is part of that curriculum. A lot of scenario based training and a lot of physical stuff, and a lot of taking the mats and doing the stuff you need to do to hopefully survive.
What about and as we see now with a lot of the issues going on with law enforcement and things like that, is there any changing going on that you know of within the the training programs now, specifically in the academy training, as far as interacting with civilians and things, and what can you talk about that, and what changes are happening? And
yeah, I've been through all those schools, and some of them are pretty controversial. You've seen Making a Murderer, you've seen the Reed technique, and I learned that in skills as well, but that's come under fire. De-escalation was not a thing. I've been through, if I'm sure you've talked about it, the Bulletproof Mind Caliber Press schools.
Yeah,
I've been through that 3 or 4 times. And so the emphasis back then, and this is pre-video camera, pre-cultural shift, the emphasis was on survival, less so on de-escalating. And obviously we've had a huge shift in our policing culture and our culture in general. I think often driven by video cameras. And so now there's a huge emphasis on de-escalation and mental illness, things that it wasn't on our radar. Yeah, okay, he's mentally ill. All right, just treat it like anything else. Get home, be safe, do what you got to do. And so I think they've added a lot in the curriculum for that kind of stuff. And to be honest, there's just a social awareness of, especially PTSD. We've been through, 10 years into my career was the first big part of our latest push at war, and we have a lot of returning vets with PTSD, and I think because of that, we have a cultural awareness that PTSD is a thing, not just for the soldiers, but for the cops too.
Right.
On the drive over here, I met with a deputy chief buddy of mine, and we were just talking about PTSD and just the awareness that is, even cops are willing to understand, yeah, I can be really screwed up.
I would think, especially because a lot of times law enforcement officers, start out being in the military, so they probably know firsthand. If not, maybe they even have to deal with it themselves sometimes. So they got to have a little bit of a awareness.
Yeah, and I think there's that weird thing. If you ever talk to a vet or know a vet who just got back from a deployment, especially in the early days in Iraq, where they would come home and they, still driving down the middle of the road because they're afraid of an IED, that stuff doesn't go away, and you almost wonder how that translates in law enforcement when they're used to doing military-style tactics, and all of a sudden we teach them how to de-escalate and be a cop in the civilian world, and something happens, and guess what? They might just snap right back to that moment in a desert somewhere.
Right. What, in your opinion, what else can be done training-wise, you think, to... And again, I want to say this again, is, I respect the idea of law enforcement. And that's probably surprising, to a lot of people who hear a lot of things that I say or post about or whatever. I don't think we should be without some kind of form of, of a body of law enforcement officers that just help maintain, kind of, the civilness of the society. But I want it done, ethically, and I want it to be done morally, and I want it to be done with, I spare no expense as far as training goes, and very high standards. I want them to be held to, as high as possible standards, and at least the highest standards that they hold citizens to. What do you think could be done to fix the issues that you're seeing right now?
That is tough.
I know it's a huge question.
And so I came up in an era where it was survival. I mean, it was, we really, I went to the Caliber Press School, which I used to call Paranoia School, which was a great school because I think at the time cops need to be running. This is a dangerous job. Split second, you could be fighting for your life, so be ready. I don't disagree with that, and I never will, but I think that there needs to be more of an awareness of mental illness and de-escalation within reason. And so I'm probably, as long as I've been out and as de-copped as I've become, I still wrestle with the fine line between de-escalating to the point where you are jeopardizing your own safety as an officer. There's a fine line somewhere in there, and it's not, there's nothing that's black and white about that job. Not from the way you answer the radio to how you shoot someone, from the most basic thing to the most complicated thing. There's no absolute. So everything is subjective, and it's dynamic and changing. So you have to find that way where you're going to go home safe, but you don't mistreat someone, and now you're not mistreating them within the new rules, which should incorporate everything we become aware of in our society since I started.
Here's an opinion question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then I just want you to, agree or disagree, and then let me know whatever. I think that if you choose to become a police officer, that you willingly accept a degree of risk. So while I understand, you should want to go home, and you should go home safe, every single night. And yes, you should be able to defend yourself. And if it requires putting down somebody and using violence to do it, I understand that in most cases. But I also think that, the type of job that you're doing, in knowing that you've accepted that threat of violence, that you have to accept that you have to take a little bit more risk and allow yourself to possibly get injured, to err on the side of making the right decision, whereas to maybe wait another second before, and I'm going to exaggerate in some cases, but not in every case, unloading, 17 rounds into somebody and just killing somebody because you think they were going for a gun or something like that. Do you agree with that or disagree with that? Am I wrong in my view of that? there should be a degree of accepted, that, yeah, you're kind of, you put yourself in that situation. That's kind of part of the deal. You don't get to just use the excuse of, well, I wanted to go home safe because this is the life and the job that you've chose.
Yes, no, I agree with you 100%. I don't think there's a cop that wouldn't. When you put on that uniform, you've become somewhat of a target. Everyone stares at you when you walk in a room. And yes, you are the person that people expect to take a bullet for them. And the big change happened, and I think Columbine was a turning moment in 1999, where I was on SWAT at the time, and they told us that, go home safe. That is your number one priority. And after Columbine, there was a big push nationally to change the priorities and where you fall. And the criticism of places like or the tactics used at Columbine were wait for the SWAT team, surround, hold, call SWAT, wait, because we need to go in and we need all to get home. And then they said, no, you can't. I mean, precious seconds count. You sign up for this job. Your life comes after an innocent civilian. Go in. So then they went with these 4-person response teams that would form up, and you'd go. Well, then they realized you don't have time to wait for even 4 cops to show up. Then it could be 3 minutes. Every second counts, and you just go. And it kind of took a while for all of us to go, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. The surround and wait thing, yeah, that's not cool. I signed up for this job. My life is less important than the civilian. Yeah, I signed up for it, and if I need to die, I will. So I think on that level, I think law enforcement's come a long way, and I was part of that as well. I was just talking to my buddy, who's one of his officers was involved in a wrestling match over a handgun. She ended up having to kill him close quarters because he had got his hands on her gun. Right, actually, not far from here.
A lady officer?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Who I'm friends with. And I think in a situation like that,
I don't mean that to sound sexist. Like, oh wow, she kills somebody. Just still, it's impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think that's a situation where the guy made a choice, and she was fighting for her life, and it wasn't an easy decision. She knows she's no longer a police officer, by the way. She retired from the stress. But yeah,
from specifically the shooting.
Yeah, so close quarters, and you get in a shooting, and you do what you have to do. And we'll talk about a story when we go through my stories here. One where I had a chance to kill someone and didn't. And it's kind of maybe the same reason you mentioned. It's just an extra second or two just to go, all right, let's see what's really going on here. I think the culture has changed, and I think maybe a little dangerously so, where officers are a little more likely to pause and think, all right, is this worth it? Because they know when they pull the trigger, they're going to deal with the media storm. They're going to deal with the people calling them. They're going to deal with the people assuming there was a bad shoot just because a cop shot someone. So I think that has shifted in a good way in some ways and in a bad way for cops in many ways, because I think people are more likely to be hesitant and more likely to be putting themselves in danger because they're hesitating maybe when they shouldn't. So, yeah, that's a long answer to your question. How's that?
Okay, that works. What about this? What do you think? And I'm forgetting the proper term for it, but basically there's a movement to that people want to see law enforcement officers be required to provide their own professional insurance as an individual, to be insured as an officer. So that way, that if an individual officer has too many incidents that require a financial payout, where they're sued for being too aggressive or whatever, for pick whatever it is they could be sued for by a citizen, that they could lose that insurance and no longer be an officer because they can't be insured, and as a way to help curtail some of the aggression and some law enforcement officers have an issue with. Do you think that that's a good idea? Do you support that in any kind of way, in any version of that?
Yeah, you and I have talked about that, and I mean, I don't think personal insurance is a bad idea as an officer, because honestly, you're going to get hurt, and there will be times when you're out of work and workers' comp sucks, and I've been through that system, and you never make back what you...
this is more of like liability.
Yeah, liability.
Right? Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, we've talked about this before, and I'd have to see how it would work practically. I don't think... I think there are already enough safeguards for that. With the cities should be policing their people, and they should have internal affairs departments, and they should be monitoring officers who have kind of like the flag type calls and the flag type complaints where, aggression and unnecessary use of force or bad judgment. And I think that that almost shifts the onus away from the cities. And not there's states and counties too, but I think it's a good idea to keep that where there is someone with a vested interest in monitoring those problems and moving those people along. And I think you're seeing a lot more of that than you ever have before, just because there are very few secrets anymore compared to what there used to be. And so I don't know. I think that almost shifts the blame a little bit. It allows the officer to go, well, I have insurance. It's cool.
Right. Well, I think another, besides the idea of, maybe giving them something to think about, as far as how they handle, a situation or something like that, is like, the risk of losing that insurance and then losing their job, is also it kind of protects the taxpayer from having to, foot the bill. Because if you look and that's one of the things I want to ask you about next is, specifically a case here in Minneapolis, but the Minneapolis Police Department that you've never worked for, right?
Correct.
Okay. They have a pretty sizable bill over the last 20 years of financial payouts from lawsuits from whatever reasons. And I'm not going to pretend that I think that every single lawsuit filed against them was righteous and correct, but I know for a fact not all of them were wrong either. And whenever a cop gets sued and the city gets sued, it's the taxpayer who's footing the bill to a degree. I mean, they have insurance companies that pay, but the premiums are paid by the taxpayer, and any changes or increases in those premiums again falls on the taxpayer. So that, I think that should be considered too. Don't you agree? I mean, that's...
I don't know if you're ever going to remove the liability on the part of any government agency for perceived or actual wrongdoing on the part of its employees. So the insurance would just be another source for people to make some money, good and bad. There are times when, or this crash that happened in was it Richfield? The State Patrol, not recently, where the guy drove through a playground and ran over a family.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was terrible. Terrible story.
This is a cop that did this?
No, well, there's a State Patrol had a car chase. I forgot what the chase started over, but the guy drove through a playground to get away from the cops and ran over 3 kids that were there playing. And it's been all over the news because this was probably 3 months ago. But the kid.
I can't believe I missed that one.
Yeah. And here's the thing: in terms of policy and procedure and the law, it was a legitimate car chase. At the point where the guy entered the playground, I'm guessing they were like, "We need to end this. Let's not keep this chase going." But by then it was too late, and the damage was done. And so it's through, I'd say, little to no fault of the police that this happened. And guess people are going to be paying out. That is just how it's going to work. And I don't know how. Even with insurance, how you could remove that. And that family deserves every penny they're going to get. There were 3 kids. One had a broken neck. One, really messed up. Brain injury, a bunch of stuff.
Did the driver of the suspect, did he survive, he or she?
Yeah, I think he already pled guilty, too. And this was
Did they give him any...
I think he's getting like 60 days or something.
Get the fuck out of here.
No,
really?
It's ridiculous. It really is. And you got to go off the sentencing guidelines, and it's whatever. I might be misspeaking on the sentence. That's not some kind of
manslaughter thing? That's not kind of...
Yeah. Well, it's probably a criminal vehicular operation and fleeing the police in a motor vehicle and whatever the original charge is. But, look at the sentencing guidelines. They're pretty minimal. I don't know if he's actually been sentenced. I might be talking out my ass on that, but I'm almost certain I read that he had pled guilty already. And he's basically saying, I did it. I was an idiot. But you can't change what happened. You can't take that back. You can't remove the money this family deserves, not just punitive damages, but actual damages for medical bills and everything else. And I just don't think personal insurance is a way to fix it. I think as an administrator in a police department, you go, Officer X has so many complaints and we're worried about him. We're going to send him back for psych testing. And I do think ongoing psych testing should be implemented. I probably would have been a run out in a heartbeat had they done it. I think a lot of current cops probably would too. It's hard to get through this job without some level of PTSD.
That leads me to what I want to talk about with the Minneapolis police story. But one other thing I did want to ask you about was just because you brought up the the kids getting hit. Did you see that other story recently? It happened a while ago, but the decision just came out. It was the he was one of the founders of, I believe, Napster. And he was riding his bike, and a cop was on his computer as he was driving, and he hit the guy on his bike and killed him.
Whoops.
And then I guess they went for a review or whatever the state. I think was it Colorado or Portland, one of those states, or Oregon or whatever. But they found the cop not at fault because he was on the computer in the line of duty, and he just basically hit the guy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so
Yeah. There's an interesting catch-all in the statute on texting and driving where law enforcement is exempt in the performance of their duties.
Yeah, that was exactly kind of what this was.
And I think it's interesting because there's an acknowledgement that, in order to be an effective law enforcement officer, you have to be on your phone and your computer. If he was... I don't know how you balance that, because you have to be able to do that. But it's so hard to be that guy who goes, all right, I could be catching that bank robber now. And I remember when we hired some millennials who were able to do amazing work from their computer while the rest of us are, sitting on a perimeter doing like the old school police work. These guys are on the computer looking up, we had a robbery and involved a white male who's 5'6" and had a mole on his left cheek. And I remember a guy who lived in this neighborhood. So I'm going to look on the computer. Yep, okay, and he used to live at this address. Well, when I look at this address, I see that he was dating so-and-so, and she's moved over here. And they would be doing this investigation that was incredible. And it's hard if you're that cop to go, I need to pull over to do this, or I could be driving over there looking it up as I'm going. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but... there's a fine line, I think, between texting a guy on the computer and saying, I'm going to meet you for coffee at 55 in Vicksburg, or I need to pull over and do that.
Well, what they need is like pick your cop shows. Where the cop show, they always got like somebody back at the base.
Chloe.
Yeah. And she's on the computer, and they're like, Chloe, I need the coordinates for XYZ location here, and she's typing it in, and she's feeding it all to you live via your microphone in your ear type thing.
That's actually very, very smart. Although they'd get inundated because all these cops are trying to do it themselves, and she'd be Chloe would be inundated with all these calls. But that's interesting. When I was at the police department, I oversaw a crime statistician. Her job was it expanded beyond crime statistician to the person who did that kind of stuff, but it wasn't real time much. Once in a while. But yeah, very interesting.
That's right. Yeah. Your cops are getting close to being replaced with robots anyway, so you're almost done.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Fewer people retiring.
Good thing. All right, I'm going to get to your stories. That's going to be kind of at least the fun part of this podcast, but let's talk about one more kind of hard biting topic, and that's what's going on with this case in Minneapolis. So I've been following, I guess, for a couple of years. It's getting close to 2 years now, or just over a year. And it was the lady. Remind me her name.
Justine Demond or Damond.
Demond, and she called Minneapolis PD. She lived in South Minneapolis. She thought she heard what she thought was a sexual assault, possibly. Mm-hmm. She called 911 to report it. They dispatched a unit to the location. The unit's, as I understand it, driving down the alley behind her house, maybe looking for a suspect or something that's being reported. She's coming out back to meet the officers, and maybe they drove past her, and she apparently either touched the vehicle or tapped the vehicle as it drive by to get their attention. Yep. Like, hey, I'm right here. A conversation happened, and one of the two officers in the vehicle, for some reason, shot her. And she's dead. And, of course, they didn't have cameras on. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they had body cameras and they just weren't turned on. I can't remember or how that worked. But whatever. But a news story just came out involved with this. And apparently the officer who shot her, first Somali police officer in the history of Minneapolis Police Department, he had a very interesting training issions.
Yeah.
Do you want to? You just read the story. I just showed you the story.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit and what you got out of that story and
yeah.
Maybe...
I looked at it briefly, so I don't want to misstate much.
Okay.
Or, well, I don't want to misstate anything for that matter. But what's interesting, what stuck out to me, and whether it's true or not, I don't know the sourcing on it, but that he was a little flagged during his psych eval. When you get hired as a cop, you spend a full day at a psychiatrist, and there are a couple psychiatrists that deal almost exclusively with law enforcement. Put you through the battery of testing, the CPI and the MMPI.
Are these psychiatrists, are they independent? Are they hired by the police? Or is there any kind of buffer between okay, we need to get these guys through? Or is there...
Yeah, well, there are different firms you can use, and I know one department I worked with, that had ditched one for a while that was, saying no to too many people or yes to too many people, and they moved on to another firm, and I wasn't privy to why they did that, but so there's a couple in town that almost exclusively do cops.
Okay.
And this is just one of those contract places, and they...
I'm sorry, one more question. Where does that standard come from? Who determines the mental health standard?
Well, I think the CPI and the MMPI determine the mental health standard. The Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory and the California Personality Inventory.
Okay.
They're the kind of the standards, about 700 questions.
Okay.
And, the ones we always joke about, I like to eat poop. And I must admit that I feel more aggressive than others. Or those kind of things. And it's,
I aggressively eat poop.
Yes. And obviously, we want those people that aggressively eat poop.
Got to clean up the streets.
Well played, sir. So those are kind of the starting point, and then there's a pretty in-depth interview, but it's really just a chat, and I don't know what they use as their standard beyond that. The MMPI and the CPI, I think, are pretty well-designed psychological inventories. They're pretty hard to trick. They know when you're playing games with them. But then there's the subjective part that is where the doctor interviews you. And from what I've read briefly about the story you just told me about, it sounds like he struggled in a few issues within that interview where he was, I don't want to say flagged, because you don't necessarily fail those. You might score high for aggression or low for people skills, or, different. You might set off the tripwire that says that you're not being honest. But for the most part, it's pretty subjective. And I know some people who I thought would be a great cop, and I knew them personally, and they didn't get cop jobs.
He's talking about me.
Yeah.
Excellent officer.
You would have been great. Look good in polyester. So then there were other people who I thought, what the hell did this person? How did they get through this? I have no idea. So, and I think he was one of those people who flagged him for whatever reason, but. The psychologist rarely will, or psychiatrists will rarely turn in this test and say yes or no. They'll say, here are the results. And the department gets to choose. And again, I don't know the source, but the department in that case chose to move forward. And some of the stuff was flagged for aggression and some other things. And I think one of the issues that came up in field training, and I've trained people like this, guy's a load. He was driving around in circles either because he's scared or he's lazy or he thinks he's waiting for the big one. And he doesn't want to, go on a debris in the roadway or a stranded motorist. No cop likes those calls, but you go on them. Or, I've been on trained people who they just seem to not want to go to the call. It's a little bit scary, and you don't want those people either.
Right.
So yeah, and of course, people come out of the woodwork after a shooting. Well, I knew something was wrong, and I blah blah blah. Why didn't they come forward before? Was it a big enough issue? And there's that weird. Not just cop culture, but culture thing in general, where, you don't want to get someone fired you work with.
Right.
You don't want to start that process, and what if it doesn't happen? You're stuck working with them.
Exactly. Well, as far as the mental evaluation, if I remember correctly, maybe you do better than I did, there was more than one, red flag.
Yeah, there were a couple.
For this particular officer?
Yeah, let me see if I have the story up.
Because if I'm right in remembering that, is that unheard of that it would get more than one and still get a pass?
Yeah, it's really subjective. It's pretty rare that someone just straight up fails these tests.
Okay.
Let's see. Reported disliking people and being around them. And they said,
totally not a good skill to have when you're a cop, when you're policing people.
It's like sort of almost a
It's like being a doctor. It's
job.
I don't like blood. Ugh, gross.
Yeah, I abhor violence. Let's see. Reported disliking people and being around them. Self-reported disinterest in interaction with other people is very uncommon among other police officer candidates. Absolutely. You have to be a people person.
Right.
And one of the first questions, tell us about yourself. I'm a people person. And, of course, I just want to help people. So those are the things you look for. So, yeah. They said because there was no evidence of major mental illness, chemical dependence, or personality disorder, he was psychiatrically fit to work as a cadet police officer, which is true. But if you hold this guy up against 10 other guys, gals, who don't have those flags and have passed all the other tests, maybe you want to go with them.
Right.
So, and I know he was really touted as like, we really have gone really far culturally. Let's hire this guy.
Well, that was where I was going to go to next with this was, and I've heard it. Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, and I've heard it from other people who are either work for the city or I've talked to other police officers, and if you look at the comment threads of that story, it's going to be said in a lot more hateful way than I would say it. But Minneapolis Police Department a few years back kind of went through we need to diversify our hiring practice. And while I get that, and I totally understand that, I think this was maybe an extreme. I mean, there's a very large, I think we're the second largest Somali population in this.
Yeah, I
in
think
the country?
we're actually the largest.
Are we the
a few
largest
years
now?
ago, the largest outside of Somalia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 25,000.
So it would make sense. I mean, to have, every, a large population like that represented, especially within law enforcement. And I totally get that. And but to what end to make that happen?
Yeah.
This is.
Well, it's a tough culture because that is a very new culture to our culture. They haven't fully assimilated, and you see it happen. It happened. You weren't here for that yet. You weren't in Minnesota yet, but there was just a huge flood of Southeast Asians after the Vietnam War,
Right.
and that was the first of, not the first, but the most recent big influx of a whole culture where the parents don't speak English, but the kids do, and you get this weird reverse parenting thing going on, and that's kind of what we're dealing with people from the Horn of Africa right now.
Yeah.
It's it's a weird place, and you need those people on the police department, and it's tough to sort through who's because there are the cultural issues as you handpick your officers. Because by the time you get selected as an officer, you've gone through quite a few hurdles. It's a pretty small list to pick from.
Right. Just to me, I mean, and I don't know if you want to put your pick one side or the other on this right now, but it feels like to me that the department is in a lot of trouble here.
They could be. I mean, at least on a civil level, probably. He's got a criminal case pending, which probably is going to be interesting too. And I have some friends who are on one side of it as well. And it's the criminal case that'll sort out just based on the facts. But when you deal with the civil stuff and any oversight on the department's part or any decision to go against a recommendation from a psychiatrist, looks like they kind of said, hey, he passes, we have some concerns. But this is a sample of one too, and I think if you compare this to the psych evals for 10 white guys, all middle American Minnesotans who want to be cops, you might find a lot of that. So I don't know. I guess that'd be the big question I have. What if you looked at my psych profile? Yeah, he's really clumsy, and he's full of himself. So we have those concerns, but he passes his psych. Hire him, and then the other 8 people might have the same thing.
Right.
So,
and to wrap this up, just to kind of especially for people who are listening who don't really know this story, I kind of gave a little basis of what had happened, but maybe you'd know a little bit more detail about what actually happened that night, and was I right as far as kind of laying it out as far as what went down, and then also what's going on with his partner? Is the partner in any kind of trouble at all? I mean, he was just kind of there, and what more do you know, or what more can you say? I'm sure you probably know more than you're actually allowed to say or comfortable saying, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to someone who's extremely close to this, so I'll pick my words carefully. But I will say, I think the only factual thing you got wrong for the most part is there was no conversation.
Oh, there wasn't? Okay.
Yeah, as I understand it, and I don't think it's fully established, she may have slapped the car to get their attention, and the rest happened extremely quickly.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe there was.
Yeah, there was no conversation, and Yeah, the partner is not in any legal trouble, and I think the partner, as I understand it, is pretty much at odds with what happened, and that's part of the reason this guy's getting prosecuted. I mean,
by at odds, you mean that he's like,
yeah, I don't know why this happened.
okay,
Yeah,
this guy's fucked up.
I have done that, and I don't want to say it's exact procedure, but I did it constantly, where my handgun was out, tucked by the side of a door. It's not holstered, ready to go. And that's kind of what happened here. I just don't know why all of a sudden a round went off. I don't care how scared you are. Keep that finger off the trigger unless there's a threat. And I mean, you do more harm than good shooting across your partner. He was in the passenger side shooting through the driver's window, and that's where she got shot. I mean, she was so close.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So he was in the, and this is in the news. Nothing anyone has told me, but he's in the passenger side shooting across the driver's window, and he hit her in the abdomen. So you can tell how close she was to the car. I think she slapped the car and she walked to say, "Hey guys," and it happened that quickly. So, and of course he didn't talk. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing had I been in his situation. I'm not going to probably talk. They always say, "Don't talk to the cops." Well, he didn't talk to the cops.
Yeah, I totally understand that part of it.
So, and without his statement, you're left to guess what happened. And I'd say at a bare minimum, he's facing. I mean, I think you read the definition of the manslaughter statute. At a bare minimum, he committed that. If not, a lower level of murder.
Right.
So,
what about the camera situation? Were they did they? Because I know that after the shooting in God, what was it? There's been so many. I'm sorry that the guy that was shot and he got pulled over. He had to conceal carry. I just blanked his name.
He
was shot near the kind of St. Paul area, but
Jamar Clark. No,
not Jamar Clark.
No. Oh my God,
him and his girlfriend.
Yeah. Geronimo Yanez and the guy's name, Fulano Castile.
Castile, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I started my career. That was my beat when I started.
Really?
Roseville. Yeah.
I wish you were still there. It would have ended differently.
Yeah.
But there was after that there was a bigger push for the the body cameras and all that stuff. Were these guys equipped with body cameras and they weren't on?
Yeah, as I understand it, they were equipped. They weren't required to be activated unless you thought they were needed. I mean, there's certain triggers. It hadn't triggered it yet.
Responding to a possible sexual assault, it's turn the camera on, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I do. I under the current policy, they have to be activated, and there has to be a reason why not if you're on a call, and that makes sense. We had cameras probably the last 2 years of my police career, and they were just squad car cameras. And man, there was a pushback from the cops. And I think most cops, and I was an advocate at the time, agree that they're a great idea. And Minneapolis, I think, is probably a little slower to adopt that, knowing their mentality. But I would think most of those guys are like, yeah, it's probably a good idea to have these things on. It's just it wasn't the policy and it wasn't the standard practice. And so they weren't on. There was nothing happening. They thought it was one of these routine calls that we get all the time where they hear someone screaming, possible sex assault. Yeah, I hear this all the time. I'm going to drive through the alley and there's nothing. We're good.
This is one of those cases that changed this policy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Has there been any immediate changes now that you know of, or?
I don't, other than you're going to see a lot more stuff caught on video.
Okay.
So now we're going to get down to arguing the minutia about the detail rather than why wasn't the camera on and there's no video. So it's he said, she said. Now we're going to be arguing about the minutia of frame 3. We see his hand pointed this way and that way. So, yeah.
God.
And actually, you see it bear out right now. There was the shooting recently in Minneapolis with the 2 cops. And as a cop, 25-year cop, watching the video of these 2 cops communicating on the way to this call with the man with the gun. Remember the suicidal male sitting on the curb and he takes off running? This was tactically, professionally, and in terms of communication, the best call I've seen during the approach. And I think the video just bears it out. So I think the cops will go, yeah, I need to have this camera on because that is what cleared those guys. I mean, they would have gotten cleared anyway, I think, but that just, there's just no question. There's video. This is what happened. So, yeah, I think the era of video has arrived, and cops are the slowest to adapt technology like that, and I think they all see the value of it.
Right. Especially if it keeps them out of trouble now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's funny. What's interesting, and you might have a different view because I know you, but that one, I can't see an argument, but it's so funny that some people are still hand-picking the argument and going, well, okay, they started with, it was an unrighteous shoot. They planted a gun to, okay, well, the gun was there, but then why did they shoot him here? And they've had to, like, every step of the way advance their argument a little bit because the video is just pretty clear cut, and there aren't too many people who would say, yeah, I'm going to, A, let the guy just run away because he's a danger, and B, he's going to shoot at me, I'm just going to let him shoot at me, and I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to offend anyone. And I think that was one of the best tactical and righteous shoots I've seen on video in a very long time.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. I hate to see somebody getting shot and they haven't, actively shot anybody or attempting to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
But I'd much rather fight the battles of the ones with the unarmed suspects or the ones that are much more obviously questionable to me. Mm-hmm. And then once we figure that stuff out, then maybe we can get into the minutia of these that are a little more.
There was one. It's not in our list of stories we're going to talk about, but it was a bank robbery and it was a GPS deal where they gave him the money, but they put a GPS tracker in there, and we got in a huge car chase with the guy, and he's throwing the money out, and he's waving a gun while we're car chasing him, and I don't think he took a shot. I guess we may never know that, but he was waving the gun, and we all pointing it as we're chasing him, and he ended up crashing his car. We spun him out, we pitted him, and his car caught on fire. So we're trying to do a high risk stop on him. He takes off running through a neighborhood, waving a handgun, and there were a whole bunch of agencies involved. It started in Edina as a bank robbery. The car chase started in Bloomington, in my jurisdiction. It ended up in Eden Prairie on the border, and so we had all these agencies involved: state, county, Bloomington, Edina, Eden Prairie. And he got out of the car running. And here's my argument. He already has shown a level of danger. He's already shown the motivation to get the hell out of this. And my argument was, and it was standard police practice, if he's got a gun, you do exactly like these two cops say, and you say, if you don't drop that gun, I'm going to shoot you. And the reason you're going to do that is because he ran into a residential neighborhood in Eden Prairie, a high buck neighborhood, cul-de-sacs. First lady out walking with her kids is going to be a hostage, and I am not going to be the guy to take that chance. Now, granted, the people chasing him didn't do that, and somehow they got close enough and they tasered him, which I think many people would argue is fine. I don't think you should bring a taser to a gunfight, and I would have shot that guy the minute he took off running, and I said, drop the gun, I'm going to shoot you.
I agree with you. Yeah. Especially somebody who, and it's not like he didn't have a holstered weapon.
Right.
If he's got a gun, he's running, his adrenaline's pumping, finger could graze that trigger, that trigger, that gun could go off and shoot who knows whatever, a kid or whatever. I'd much rather, figure that one out in court after the fact.
Yeah. And, and granted, people would say, well, why? He's not a danger. And I'm not arguing you on this. I'm arguing just in general principle. But if he had gotten away and taken that hostage, guess who would have been to blame? If he had broken into a house, guess who would have been to blame? So I think that one is, pretty clear cut.
Yeah, I can respect the potential danger as much as the pulling a gun off and aiming it at somebody. Mm-hmm. You're still creating the the threat just by your actions. I mean, that's just simple rules of gun ownership and everything else. That's gun safety 101.
Yeah.
Let's move on to your story. We're almost an hour in. So let's bang out your stories here, because there's some of these I know about and are going to be fun to talk about, and some of these I don't know anything about, but they sound interesting. So let's start with I guess early in your career, and you had a couple kind of early ones, and I've just got titles here, so I'm gonna give you the titles, and you're gonna tell me the stories. The first couple ones were car fire and unparked dog ticket.
Yeah.
What are those stories?
Yeah, and I haven't talked a lot about either of these, but so I was a young 18-year-old community service officer. I wasn't even a cop yet. So we talked about police reserve, but I was a civilian in a police uniform, and they gave us a panel van, and we were in charge of all the dog catching.
Right.
Really?
They did the dog catching?
All the dog catching. Yep. So I was a dog catcher. Great job.
Did you get a net?
I had a net, a catch pole, I had all that stuff. But also, because I worked with these day watchers and I was young and eager, I'd go on these calls, and I'd be the first guy going in the call on a burglary in progress. No gun, by the way. Because the old timers were like, we can't fit in them. Why don't you go, Chucky? So, yeah.
Use your net to catch the armed robber.
I got you. But so, my first car fire, it was on Highway 36. And if you've ever seen a car fire, those things go.
Yeah.
So, I was the first one there, and I pull up and I turn on all my fancy red lights. We had these panel vans, And I hop out, and I remember everyone's like, "Oh, thank God, the police are here. Check this out." Both sides of the highway are stopped. Everyone is just staring at the car fire and me. And I got out of the truck. I was so excited. I park at very tactical, safe distance back. And I ran around to the back of the truck to open up the back door to grab the fire extinguisher, which isn't going to do any good, but
Right.
I had to try, right? And I go to grab the door, and the door moved. And I thought, the door's moving. I left the car and drive.
Oh, man.
So I'm now chasing the panel van, which is picking up speed, moving toward the burning car. And I ended up, granted, the entire highway is watching this. So I now run around the back of the truck, and I'm running next to the van. And it's picking up speed. And now we're doing, 15 miles an hour. I'm in a full sprint. I'm able to get the door open. I look up, and the panel van is about to hit the car that is on fire.
Right.
And I there's no time. I had no time to hit the brake. And I reached over, and I threw the thing in park. And if you're ever done with one of those old transmissions, it just went thunk, 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 thunk. And it stopped about 2 feet from the burning car. And I just couldn't help.
Everybody's like watching, like, what kind of tactic is that?
It's the old ram and move.
What?
Ram and move. Yeah. Thank God the police are here. Oh my God, it's him. Oh no.
Now there's
no.
2 car fires.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it was that close. It was seriously feet away. So, yeah. I didn't.
Did you wreck the transmission? Was it?
No, actually, I
fine?
did that. I've done that a few times in my career, by the way. But yeah, it's usually a little more intense than that. That one, yeah, I was not a bright kid. I don't think you want to give that kid a police car. That was not smart. We used to do all the enforcement for animal control, so we'll get into the second one here, but it's not that dissimilar. So there was a guy that I was writing a ticket to for his dog being at loose. And that day I was the lucky kid, the lucky community service officer. I got to drive the regular police car. It wasn't the panel van. It was a regular old police car. So here's this little pimply faced kid getting out, and I, at the time, was about 150 pounds.
I've seen pictures of you in
adorable,
uniform.
wasn't I?
You were a little scrawny guy.
Yeah, adorable, intimidating.
Right.
And I remember this guy was really a dick, and he and I are kind of going toe to toe, and I, like just verbally. And
What, was his dog just like running in the neighborhood?
Yeah, it was an ongoing problem. The dog was always running loose, blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, you're getting a ticket today. Well, I don't get a break. No, I'm tired of telling you to put your dog away. And he goes, and all of a sudden you hear, I'm like, oh my God, what was that? He goes, what was that? I said, I kind of left my car and drive. And it sort of hit your parked car. So we went down.
You did it again?
Yeah, I did it again. Went down and looked at the car, and my car with the push bumpers had just tapped his car and was just sitting there. And I said, you know what? We're going to let you go. You're good to go. Just don't let your dog run again. And that was the end of that.
Did you fuck up his car?
No, actually, amazingly, because trust me, he would have done anything he could have to get me fired, I'm sure. But no, there was nothing. He was happy to get out of his ticket, and I was happy not to have him call and complain, because that department, they would have canned you. So, yeah, I hit that microphone a little hard.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not always the brightest guy, especially when I was young. I was a little impulsive, maybe more so than now.
The only way that story could have been worse is if like the car would have like ran over his dog. You'd be like, no ticket, but no dog issues anymore either. So
Problem solved.
So win.
Yeah.
Well, so that was like, is it your first year?
Yeah, it was probably, it was certainly my first 4 years, but I think I was so new to that job, and it was so overwhelming for an 18-year-old kid to have, and at that time there was really no training as a community service officer. Thrown in a police car, red lights, and
No gun yet.
yeah,
Right?
no gun, no, thank God.
When did you become a cop? What age were you?
22,
22.
still too young,
Okay.
still stupid.
So I was going to ask you when's the right age to give somebody both a gun and an authority?
Well, to anyone listening who was a cop between the ages of 22 and 25, I'm sorry, but I honestly don't think I was ready till I was at least 25.
Okay.
That's
the number I think of. That's
Yeah.
25.
Well,
I
I
didn't
think-
start pulling my head out of my ass barely till at 25.
45. No, you're not that old.
Okay.
35. But I think, and if you do actually do the neuroscience and you read up on it, I don't think the brain is fully developed till you're 25. I just don't think. I did a lot of dumb stuff at the age of 22 to 25, and it was a lot of power at that age.
What about this idea? And it's not an original one to me, but what about once you become a cop and you're not just a resource officer or reserve officer, but an actual cop, but the first 2 years unarmed.
Whew.
And you're either, riding along with an armed cop helping out, but you don't get a gun, and you just learn how to do everything a cop does without the gun interactions, things like that. Seems like to me there's a psychological change, you know?
Yeah, there is. I don't think you should ever want to send a cop out unarmed for any number of reasons. And I think, the reserve program we talked about and the CSO job I did is kind of basically a prelude to that. So you get to do all the stuff, you learn all the skills, you learn all the tactics, you learn the people skills, and you don't have the gun. But I think the gun's at least the problem. I think it's the person behind the gun that would be the problem. That's what you need to work on in those skills.
You don't think that alters? Even as as a gun owner myself, he's like you got to have a maturity. You have to have But I was raised from a kid with firearms, and it was ingrained in me at a very early age. Safety, responsibility, and how to respect it and to understand. But it's a very different perspective for a cop. So to me, there's got to be a psychological change, altering change, that you've got this killing device to back up your authority.
It is, but it goes in tandem with something so subtle. And I remember this because I used to take a ton of ride-alongs. And I remember from my first ride-along, sitting in the passenger seat of a police car. It is the exact same change that happens. Just this awareness of, holy shit, I can drive through a red light now. Everyone is slowing down when everyone is looking at this car. I am now a target. Everyone expects me to help if something happens. It is that first 20 minutes in a police car is life-altering. It really is. Even on a ride-along. Just that you become hyper-aware. You're now in the... if you first time up in a plane, first time underwater, your perspective completely changes. And I think that is absolutely in tandem with the carrying the gun. I mean, those two... psychologically, and they are huge psychological changes, but it's ask anyone who ever came on a ride along with me for just a couple hours.
And again, this is coming from somebody who just said that I believe in some kind of law enforcement. Do you think human beings, we're really capable to do what we're asking law enforcement to do, knowing how flawed we are as a human being, and we all are? I mean,
speak for yourself.
Every other job. I mean, it's different. It's even different than the military in this way. It's a very unique job where you're given this authority and this power of life and death over should be perceived as your equal human being across from you. Mm-hmm. That, to me, just for me to sit there and kind of mind model that and try to put myself in that situation, which I've never been in, that to me is mind blowing, and it's intimidating even to think about.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we're designed for that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think as humans we are. There's so many decisions that from putting on the uniform to the end of the day where you get in there shooting, and so many minute, life-changing decisions happen that you're asking too much of anyone, but it has to happen. It still blows my mind that some people are capable of doing the things they do that lead to law enforcement having contact with them. That's why you need the cops.
Yeah.
Because some people are just capable of doing terrible things. And you're asking a huge job of people. And I think it's imperative that we do take care of them so they don't go off the rails. And lots of mental health follow-up and lots more availability of resources. I'm part of a injured cop group called the Minnesota Association for Injured Peace Officers, and we do a lot of mentoring of injured cops, and we've been dealing a lot with PTSD. And I think it's really important that has come to the forefront, even in law enforcement, where cops are finally not afraid to say, I've had too much, I've seen too much, I can't do this anymore. And I think that's great. And I think those people deserve a retirement.
I was just going to ask, what if an officer feels that way? Say you've gone through a traumatic situation and you feel like you can't comfortably do this job, either comfortably or safely for either yourself or for your fellow officers or for the citizens. Is there, you feel like you have to quit? Is there any kind of severance or anything for them?
Yeah.
How does that work for them?
So PTSD is now a recognized reason to retire if it's diagnosed and it's validated by several health professionals. There's a whole process for it, and that's finally come to be. It used to be a real battle because I know some people, even in the early years of this injured cop association injured cop association that really struggled to get a PTSD retirement. Because why would you give up a $70,000 a year job just to be unemployed and not have insurance? So, and I guess of course the fear is that now cops are going to start retiring for PTSD when they don't really have it. Because why not? I think it needs to be closely monitored. But I think I go around the state and I lecture on PTSD and aftercare of first responders, and making sure that you're watching your partners, and if you see something out of turn, you're reporting it and you're getting them help, and you're not afraid to confront them on it too. So it's I think we've come a long way, and we're headed that way now too.
Yeah, that's another one of the things I would definitely support. I mean, again, just to appreciate the what the job is when it's done right. I mean, it is high risk job, and it is. I have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's your next story here? Armored car. That was your next.
Oh yeah. So this one was on America's Most Wanted. We had I was working as a beat cop, and I had
a beat cop. Mean you prefer that you were the cop that beat people? Is that how it works?
Well played. Yeah. Are we able to hit pause for a minute? Does this sound like not cool?
I'll just let it keep going. I know how to talk to people. I'm good.
Okay.
You got to go pee or something?
I can take this call.
Oh, you got to take a call? Oh, well, I'll push pause then. We'll be right back next after this phone call. And we're back. All right. So now Chuck is done making his drug deal on the phone.
Good stuff coming.
Right.
Do you have $5 I can borrow?
$5? Yeah, sure, man. Do you roll it up?
In quarters?
Yeah. So I don't know how far we got. You were going to tell me about the armored car story?
Yeah. So, and I mentioned this is on America's Most Wanted, but I was rookie cop, and I took this beat for someone. I was a relief car, meaning I would take different beats when people were on vacation.
Okay.
So my buddy was out of town. I took his beat, and I did a traffic stop right outside the police department. I was on this traffic stop. I hadn't even headed to my beat yet. And a call goes out on the radio of, we need cars to start for the target. A report of a security guard shot in the head in the parking lot. And I thought, holy shit, this is the call. So,
was the story that you had told me, or because automatically it sounds like something I remember?
Yeah, I've probably talked about it. And I talk about it a fair amount. It's like one of the more telling stories of my police career. So,
Jesus.
What happened was there was a armored car guy, and he.
Can we laugh now at the irony of it being Target? Okay, sorry.
You can a little bit, I guess.
A little dark humor here.
He was an armored car guy. He also had taken the shift for someone else. It was a beautiful Sunday. It was November, I think, like 7th, and it was a really unseasonably warm day, and the Vikings had just destroyed the Packers in an upset win. Everyone was in a great mood. The game ended at 3, and at 3:07, my shift started at 3. At 3:07, this happened.
It's funny you mention that. As a former criminal myself, I'll often think about best ways to commit crimes and best times to do it. And if you're in a city with a professional sports team, after the most popular of the sports team, which would be the Vikings in this town, after a win or during a big game, it's always the best time.
That's actually very smart.
To commit a crime, because oftentimes police officers are fans and they're distracted.
Yeah,
Just
a little
saying.
distractor standing around the TV in the briefing room.
Yep.
Yeah. So this guy, they'd actually staked this out for a while, but there was a couple of clowns that decided to rob an armored car, and there was the armored car guy also picked up a shift for a coworker. And there's a driver and a passenger. And the driver was parked in front of the front entrance of the Target in Bloomington. And the passenger, his job was to open the back door, grab the dolly, wheel the money into the Target, grab bags of money, wheel them back out, and throw them in the truck, and away they go. But they had a system. If there's someone suspicious, the driver would radio the passenger, say, hey, watch out for this or that. And sure enough, there's a guy leaning against the pillar right behind the big cement pillar right behind the armored car, and he was just kind of suspicious.
I'm guilty of, like, whenever I see those armored car guys, like it was when I go to the gym I don't know why there's armored cars going into Lifetime Fitness, but I guess they have a lot of cash there. But whenever I see them out there, I always kind of like walk like I kind of make eye contact with the driver, and I walk right to him, and then I make a quick turn
You're such a dick.
just to keep them on their guard.
Yeah.
Because I look kind of scary and goofy looking anyway.
It's actually not a bad idea. You're actually helping them. I'm not kidding.
I'm training.
You're welcome.
I'm training.
Yeah.
Send me a check, Wells Fargo, or whoever the hell it was. Anyway,
Everybody.
sorry.
The driver radios the passenger and says, "Watch out for this guy." The passenger says, "Copy," and that's it. And sure enough, he grabs his money and wheels it out. Well, the guy, as he gets to the back door, the security guard gets to the back door with the dolly, and he's unlocking the door. The guy walks up to him and 3 shots, 1 to the head, 2 to the chest. And that was
just
it.
immediately shot him.
Yep, didn't even give him a chance. And then he grabs the money and he takes off. People see him get in a car. It's broad daylight.
Do you know how much money was taken?
$60,000.
You murder somebody for
$60,000. Actually, it was 58, but yeah.
That's not much money.
It's crazy. It is. And he gets in a car and he takes off, and someone chases him. And so the chaos that is, we're right on the border with Richfield and Edina, and so all the calls that came in, he did this in front of hundreds of people, and people get descriptions, and one guy gets in a car and chases him. So
mask or anything?
No.
Okay, wow.
I had a stocking cap, as I recall.
Okay.
And so we had a report that there were 2 cars involved. The witness who chased him was the second car and realized, I'm chasing a guy with a gun and I need to back off. So he went a few blocks and abandoned that. But at first we had reports that, there are 2 cars racing through these neighborhoods. So I get this call, and I remember driving. I was in vapor lock. I'm driving down Penn Avenue, which is a direct shot to the target from the police station, doing about 110. And I remember screaming, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And I, 110 miles an hour, and I get to target. And it took me a good 2-3 minutes to get there. And as I'm taking a left turn into Target, I'm doing about 70. And I hit the curb at 70. And my car, as you can imagine, you've driven a Crown Vic, when you hit something hard, you know it.
Yeah.
And I limp my car to the scene, and it's another officer and I are the first 2 people on the scene. There are hundreds of people gathered around. There's the security guard shot in the head, laying on the ground. The driver for the armored car, their procedure was to lock the car and hit the siren.
So he's out there just watching his buddy bleed to death.
Yeah, and he actually, I no fault to his. He was following policy.
Yeah, or he's just dead.
Yeah. He could have engaged, or he could have run the guy over, but he didn't. But his policy was just to sit there, and he did what he was supposed to. And so we're working on this guy trying to do CPR, and every time you do chest compression, a little more brain matter came out from his head. But we did CPR. We tried to gather witnesses, and at that point, there were 2 of us. And granted, the whole cavalry arrived, but there were a couple minutes where we're trying to. There's shell casings everywhere. There's a body. There's one of the money bags was strewn out, and there are witnesses galore. And this is,
nobody's trying to grab the money.
No, believe it or not,
I can't believe that. And
yeah,
knowing humanity, that's
I think everyone knew it was on
impressive.
video.
Good job, humans.
Yeah, thank you, humans.
Jesus,
that's money that could go back into Target. It was a chaotic scene. I hadn't actually, oddly, we talked about the training I got. One thing we never discussed was crime scenes and setting up a perimeter to protect evidence and cordon off witnesses. And so it was a long day, and I learned a lot about not stringing up crime scene tape, and making sure that the scene was protected. There's some pretty good video of me knocking on the armored car because the guy wouldn't open the door. And I remember I had to call my dispatcher, who called his dispatcher to say, open that door. We want to talk to you. And he wouldn't do it because the procedure was, you do not open the door for anyone.
Oh, okay.
And I'm standing on the door, knocking on the door, and there's some good video of me trying to get him to come out of the car. And I finally told his dispatcher that if he didn't open the door, he was going to be arrested, which is a terrible thing. I felt bad for the guy. So my job later was to drive him back to the police station. So he had just seen his partner killed in cold blood. And I remember putting this guy in my car and driving,
How was he taking it at the time? By that time?
He was just absolutely stunned, shocked,
How
stunned. He was probably older than me. He was probably 40 at the time. And I remember driving back. I mentioned when I pulled in, I hit that curb super hard. So I get in my car, which had been sitting for about 4 hours at this point at the crime scene, stuff him in my car, and I'm driving back to the police station. The car is doing this ka-thunk, 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 and bumping up and down like a clown car. We pull up at the first light, and someone pulls up next to me, and they didn't know what was going on. They go, "Hey, officer, roll your window down." Roll my window down. There's something wrong with your car. And I go, "Yeah, I know. Thank you." Of course, I've got the passenger or the driver from the armored car in the car with me. And then we go to the next stoplight. Someone pulled up next to me. Hey, officer, yeah. I figured they had information about the crime. No. There's something wrong with your car. I know. Thank you. So, yeah. That case, they ended up, it took 6 years, and they ended up putting there was a kind of a known shithead in our town that had been bragging to people that he did this job, and he bragged to one of his cellmates who, of course, wanted some time off, and they turned the cellmate into an informant, and the FBI worked this with our detectives 6 years later. I mean, we had thousands.
Oh, so he didn't get caught after it happened?
6 years of investigation, and America's Most Wanted, and nonstop tips, and I mean, it was pretty intense. A lot of different suspects that we thought was the guy, and then finally, this guy was yapping that he did this armored car robbery. They let his buddy out of jail, and when this guy got out of jail, they gave him a wired car with all kinds of cameras and microphones, and they got him to basically say what he did. He was very cryptic. He's like, well, I'm not saying I would do it, but if I did do it, first thing I would do is one to the head and two to the chest. And then so hours of surveillance on these two guys as he basically talked them through what he did.
Right.
And they charged him. It was pretty much a circumstantial case. There was not a lot. Never found the car. We never found the gun. We never found the money. It was basically his statement saying, this is what I did. And he never directly said, I did this. Well, I'm not saying I did it, but if I were to do it, I'd do it at 3:07 p.m. in the Target parking lot. So, yeah, it was a very interesting case. And
what was his backstory? What was it? Is it a drug thing?
Yeah.
Was it a? Okay.
He was just a dirtbag meth head, and just that was, he needed money for that kind of stuff. It's crazy. But that it was going to be the first possible death penalty case in Minnesota because we don't have the death penalty, but the feds do, and it was a federal crime. So
what made? Oh, because it was a.
Yeah, it was armored car murder,
okay.
Which is you're eligible for the death penalty under federal law. So
because it's an armored car,
interstate transit.
Okay,
it's
wow,
federal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
noted.
Yeah, noted indeed. So.
Let's move on to the next one then. I've got another one that definitely doesn't sound like one with a happy ending.
There aren't a lot of these.
But this is one that's actually good timing, I guess, in this case, because it's going to be, you mentioned before we started recording, so it's kind of connected to a story that's happening right now. This is the Brook homicide story.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us that, and then tell us how it's connected to, and what story it's connected to right now.
Yeah, so Brooke Thompson is the lady's name, and most of you won't recognize that, although maybe you're Googling it right now. So Brooke Thompson was a nice young lady who had a child. I'm talking like an old man. She was a nice young lady with a child. Out of wedlock, by the way. But she was, like 25 years old probably. She had a 3-year-old, as I recall. And she was dating this guy who everyone thought was kind of a douchebag. I'm going to go backward. I'm going to start out. Here's how this came in. I was working as the watch commander, and I got a call from the Plymouth Police Department. And remember, I work Bloomington. And they said, we need you to go over to this apartment in your city and freeze the scene. Wait
a minute. Do you know anybody who works for the Plymouth Police Department?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I hate my neighbors. Okay.
Good people.
And they call the police on me. They made me get rid of my chickens because I'm apparently in Plymouth, like there's 2 areas in Plymouth.
Uh-huh.
An area you can have chickens and an area you can't have chickens. I'm like 2 or 3 blocks out of the area you can have chickens. So I had like my chickens back there. I had like fresh eggs.
Uh-huh.
And my neighbors are fucking assholes. They call the police on me for every fucking thing. And they complained about my chickens. The police, they came. I had to get rid of my chickens. They complained when I had this truck. I was swapping the motor out. We pulled the motor out, and the truck was in the driveway as we were kind of redoing the new motor in the garage. And they called the police, and they're like, "Oh, you can't have this thing out here." I was like, I'm replacing a motor in my truck. It's my fucking driveway. Okay,
so you like the Plymouth?
Just give me somebody on the police department. Okay. Just give me an N whenever you get time. Anyway, back to your story. I'm sorry.
So it's going well for you in the Plymouth PD. Good. So
they're nice enough, but it's my neighbors really.
Yeah, I was actually just meeting before here with a buddy of mine who's kind of a bigwig with Plymouth PD.
Tell him I'm a nice guy.
I will. As a matter of fact. But they called and they said, we want you to freeze the scene of this home in your city. We are going to execute a search warrant at the home in your city. And I said, well, what happened? And so now I'll go back to the background. So Brooke Thompson.
That's how that works. Is if they have a warrant in your city, they can.
Yep.
They just come and they let you know.
Yep. It's kind of a courtesy thing, and sometimes you'll request the assistance of.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
But this was immediately apparent to me that it was well beyond something Plymouth should be handling.
I think that was a shot there at Plymouth.
No, not at all. Yeah, not because of their capabilities, but the situation.
Right.
And granted, these things are always happening, 11 o'clock at night when, it's young sergeants and young cops, and we're all learning the job. So, but Brooke was dating a guy named Edward Muhammad Johnson, and the family hated him. It was violent. It was, he was abusive, blah, blah, blah. And she went out for drinks with somebody and said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to break up with him. He goes, do you want me to go with for safety? Well, I'll help you get packed up. She goes, no, I'll handle it. Well, she went home. She told Edward Johnson Muhammad that she was leaving, and he stabbed her to death in the bathroom while the 3-year-old was in the living room.
So he didn't take it well.
He could have taken it better. Yeah. Which, I get it. Someone's going to break up with you. Of course you stab him to death. Right. Obviously.
To death, yeah.
What am I, an animal? I'm going to let her live through that? So, yeah, stabbed her to death, left her in the bathroom, took the 3-year-old, packed the 3-year-old up in a car, and drove up to Plymouth and called the victim's friend and said, I have the kid. I need you to meet us. I need you to take the kid. The victim's friend said, well, where's Brooke? Brooke being the victim again. And he said, don't worry about that. Just meet me in Plymouth. I'm going to turn the kid over to you. And she obviously like, something's wrong here. So she calls Plymouth PD. They're waiting. He arrives. They see him. He takes off. A small car chase.
With the kid takes off?
Yep. Oh. They get him stopped. They get him out. They get the kid out. And they open the trunk. And there's drop cloths, bleach, knives. I don't know. I'm no expert. But I'm going to say maybe he was going to cut her up. So Plymouth says, we're a little worried that, maybe she's being held hostage. I said, do you think maybe she could be hurt? We need to go in? And they said, well, I don't know. It's all right, I'm going to go, deal with this. So I grabbed one of our cops and we went over. We went to her apartment and we were just going to knock on the door and see what's going on. We peeked in through the blinds. She was on the first floor and you could see her body hanging out of the bathtub. Oh. So, anyways, I always give that example of exigent circumstances being an exception to a search warrant. You don't need a search warrant if there are exigent circumstances. Someone's life is in danger, and it's more important to see if someone's alive and need your help than it is to, get evidence. And you're going to get the evidence because you used exigent circumstances.
Plus,
to enter.
Dead body in plain sight through the window.
Yeah, and it ended up in well, I think we had to move the blinds, but not much. It was absolutely legit. So. Anyways, that is the guy who about 2 months ago was working in the shop at Oak Park Heights, or was it Stillwater Prison, and killed a security guard or a prison guard. So a very interesting guy. He, as a 12-year-old kid, his mom and dad were both Chicago cops, and he saw his dad kill his mom, shoot her in the face and kill her, and then shoot himself right in front of him. So he was.
Oh, now you got to be feeling bad for him now.
Yeah, I feel terrible for him, and it's not his fault. No, but it's. Talk about this weird cycle of violence, and
holy shit.
So then he kills this woman in cold blood, and then he goes on to kill a prison guard. So yeah, it's a crazy story.
I'm not even joking. That to me is like, well, yeah, no wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Holy fuck.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you just wonder what the family history is, and
you see now what this means, though, we get to blame the cops.
Yeah, see? Well, see? That's exactly...
back to the police there.
I wanted to give you some fodder, and there you go, Joey. That's what I do. I'm here for you.
How about... I did want to ask you about the prison guards. This is about that, but kind of about that. Prison guards right now are protesting or kind of striking about... they don't want to patrol that area, I guess, of that shop where he. Can you tell listeners how the guy killed the prison guard?
Yeah,
and then why the prison guards now are protesting and what the deal is about that?
Well, this guy had a pretty, and this is all from the news stories I've read, but he had a pretty extensive history of violence in prison. He lost his eyes. Actually, in his latest booking photo, he's wearing an eye patch because he lost his eye in a prison fight.
Oh, he's a pirate too now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Not that kind of pirate. different kind of pirate when you're in prison with a bunch of other men. So he was working in the shop. I don't know why they gave him these privileges, and he got to check out a hammer as part of his shop duties, and checked out a hammer and walked up to
Well, it's not a knife, Charlie.
Yeah, good point.
Different.
Yeah. Well, how could this be used as a weapon? This looks perfectly safe. Help yourself. So, yeah, he checked out a hammer and he beat a prison guard with it. But the prisoner guards, and this guard in particular, had been very vocal about how dangerous the shop was. There wasn't enough camera coverage, and most important, there wasn't enough supervision. So they're protesting that, and we'll see what happens. But really sad story.
Yeah, especially anything with the word shop.
Yeah,
where tools and things can go.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how badly do we need an inmate to build a birdhouse? I think we could probably get rid of that.
Well, I don't mind it, but let's have at least the security that would justify.
Yeah, sad
that
deal.
kind of situation. How about the hostage situation story?
Yeah, so I was working again as the watch commander, and I just had a real luck of being in the right place at the right time, or bad luck of being in the right place at the right time. And they put out a call of a man who had just broken into his ex-girlfriend's house, stabbed the new boyfriend, and was holding her hostage. I was like 3 blocks away. So I go tearing up there. Well, 6 blocks away, actually, if you do the math. I went tearing up there, and I did my cool tactical park we're taught to do and sneak in from a distance out.
You did put it in park this time.
Yeah, I learned over the years to put the car in park. And I was actually pretty good, I thought, at tactics, but and I parked like half a block away, and I was kind of sneaking in, and as I'm walking in, some guy goes, "I'm right here." So he's right on the front stoop, and it's the victim. He's been stabbed. And so I get there, and he's, it's I don't want to say a minor wound, but he was definitely going to live. I said, "All right, where is it?" He's in the basement. He's holding her hostage. So I left him on the stoop. I said, "Wait for the ambulance." They actually go a couple houses down and wait for him. I radioed in that the victim was on the front stoop. I told myself on the drive there, this is a bad situation, and I'm mentally prepared if I need to kill somebody, because I think you have to get there. And if you have time to prepare, it's better to be prepared. So I was set. And I walk in the house, being very careful, but there's just no waiting. I mean, there was a dangerous situation. I could maybe be the one person saving her life. I go down the stairs, and sure enough, it's just like you see in Hollywood. He had his arm around her neck. He had a knife to her throat, and he said, "I'm going to kill her, back off." So I get in a little negotiation with him, release the hostage. And he finally did it, amazingly. And so then it's just him and me. And she ran upstairs, and I was still alone. What are we, 5 minutes into this call, I was still the first person there. And I get in the standoff with him, and I'm pointing my gun at him. And he's probably, it's similar to your basement here. I mean, it's maybe 8-10 feet away. And I didn't want to give up any ground because I didn't know what could happen. And looking back, maybe I should have just left him in that basement and we could call SWAT in. But I had physical contact with him. I didn't want to give that up. And I was trying to get him to surrender. And I drop the knife. And at one point, he looked at me. He did the kind of fake out like he was coming at me. And I had my finger on the trigger. I was ready to pull the trigger. And I thought to myself a couple things. Number one, he's faking. Number two, if he isn't faking and he's really coming at me, he's about 10 feet away. And even if I take headshots and I unload as fast as I can, I may not get him down before he gets to me 10 feet away. It was a risk I wasn't willing to take. And also, I thought, I can't back up, because if I try running up the stairs, I'm in a position of disadvantage, whether I'm forward or backward. And I had that moment where I should have done it, and I didn't. And then we got in a pretty protracted standoff with this guy for probably a good 20 minutes, where a whole bunch of cops show up. We're trying to negotiate him with him. Drop the knife. I ended up getting one of my cops to load up a beanbag shotgun. I loaded beanbags in it. And
is that for hunting beanbag chairs?
Yeah, it's exactly it. And it's very effective. If you use a high gauge, you can really...
Right.
I managed to kill 2 beanbag chairs in one shot.
Nice.
So they handed me the beanbag shotgun, and it's basically it is a shotgun loaded with beanbag rounds. They're extremely painful, and when you shoot them, people always think they're shot anyway. So they tend to surrender psychologically. So someone handed me the shotgun, and I shot him 5 times with a beanbag. As he's running away, you could see the beanbag rounds like following the progression, moving down at an angle. He tried running into a bathroom, and he slammed the door, but the beanbag round penetrated the bathroom door.
Nice.
And a huge wood shard went into his chin from that door. And then he ended up wrestling with the cops again.
All right.
with the knife, and we finally got him in custody. So.
What was his deal? What triggered all this again?
Well, if I can't have her, no one will.
That was all it is?
Same thing. Yeah, he was mad because she was dating someone else. We broke in and stabbed that guy and was going to teach her a lesson.
That was the guy she was dating? The guy that got stabbed? Or?
Yeah.
And he was just pussing out?
Yeah, and actually, as I understand, it was later discovered that they weren't even necessarily dating. They were just like maybe even a one-nighter. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Why don't you come over, big boy?
How good was that pussy that you're going to get stabbed for it? I
Not
don't
good
know.
enough for that.
Not,
So he went to prison for like 7 years. He came out and started doing the same shit again. So
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, there you go.
Is he back in prison now? Do you know?
I know I haven't heard in years. I haven't looked him up in probably 10 years. But
Sure, they've got a bed waiting for him though. How about bank robbers? And this one is it was the Heat style bank robbery.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite bank robbery movie, Heat.
Oh my God, I love that movie,
Right?
first of all. And the FBI came to us one day at Bloomington and said, we have some bank robbers, and they're basically like the guys out of Heat. They're heavily armed, well-planned. These are some bad dudes. They're not afraid to shoot. We've got some sources who've said they're not afraid to shoot their way out.
They came to you before a robbery happened?
Yep.
Like they know a robbery's ready to go down? Okay.
Yep, and they said, we've been doing surveillance on these guys. We've been following them. They've been doing dry runs, and they always do dry runs. They're very well rehearsed. They're very
So
tactical.
they've done other robberies before.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting ready.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they've done it. We know they did it. They're good for it, and we want to catch them in the act.
Okay.
So, and we followed them doing a dry run. What they always do is they steal one car. They drive that stolen car to the bank robbery. They park a clean car a few blocks away. They drive the stolen car to the clean car. They drive the clean car home. And sure enough, I mean, they're like, this is it. They flew in the FBI highly sought after hostage rescue team. It's their their SWAT team, and they had those guys from all around the country, pulled from their extra duty assignments. They were doing surveillance with dozens of agents. They had the FBI team. The Bloomington SWAT team was in charge of covering the outside. The FBI SWAT team was in charge of being inside the bank. So the plan is, what these guys do is, again, they steal the car. They drive the stolen car to the bank. They leap out of the bank. They catch the teller as they're opening the bank right at 6 a.m. and they just bum rush the bank teller, grab them, hold them hostage, go in the bank, hold them all, and grab the money, and they're going to shoot their way out if they have to, and get in the stolen car, drive the stolen car to the good car, and go home. Very high intensity, blah, blah, blah.
So they weren't based from this area then. They were from...
St. Paul. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Where were they with their previous robberies? Where were they?
St. Paul area. Yeah, they've done a bunch. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't like they were a traveling band of banditos that were just...
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got our dog watch shift, because I always have them right at 6 a.m. It's right as dog watch and day watch earnings. So our dog watch and day watch are being held over. Our SWAT team was involved, and I was the outgoing night watch commander. The ingoing day watch commander was part of this too. And the FBI follows them as they're doing one of these. Well, it was a terrible snow day, so they end up getting delayed. They don't make it in time for the 6:30 bank opening, and it's called off. But everyone's all amped up and like, this is the day. I mean, there's gonna be a shootout, and there's SWAT guys everywhere. And if the TCF is right at the corner of 494 and Penn, like really busy, right, same parking lot where that Brinks,
4 and Penn.
Caribou Target, all that stuff, right where that Target homicide happened I just talked about.
Trying to visualize where that's at. 494 and Penn.
It's just a massive, busy, and it's probably the most traveled section of highway in the state.
Okay, I think
Massively
I know, yeah.
busy. And again, it's where that Brinks homicide happened.
Right.
So day one, dry run didn't go because of the weather. Day two, yep. And we're listening to the surveillance radios. And, yep, we're following them. Yep, they're going. They've got the stolen car. They're headed there. Blah blah blah.
And they don't think they're being followed at all.
No, there it is. Although the traffic's so heavy at that time of day that they were okay.
Right.
So
Bentley, get out the microphone, buddy.
This guy wants to help participate.
Nosy nose on the mic.
Yeah. Luckily, there's no snot all over my clothes, which is awesome.
I just don't see it yet.
So they end up going. They end up pulling in the lot right as the clerk is there. They end up, so we had FBI guys inside, Bloomington SWAT guys outside, street cops everywhere.
How many members of this group?
The suspects, there were 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. They look like, if you look quickly, yep, they all look like they're wearing head to toe a used army jacket. You figure there's with all the video you've seen of these prior things, you figure there's, flak jackets and body armor and all kinds of stuff. So they show up, and there's one guy in the Target lot using the video camera at the time, and following all this along. And it's so funny to watch the video because they pull up. First thing they do, it's so slippery from the snow. He hits the curb, and the car, spins out at some weird angle. He gets out of the car with his big duffel bag full of what we assume is machine guns and everything else, and he's running for the front entrance, and he falls on his ass. And the other guys are running up at the same time. They end up grabbing the gal, and they bum rush her, and they go in the bank. And as soon as they go in the bank, all the FBI guys pop up with their submachine guns, and they go, FBI, hands up. And there's like a pause. And I remember watching both videos almost side by side. And the first video's from the outside, and you're kind of laughing because the one guy fell and the other guy hit the curb. And you see him go into the bank, and there's just a little pause. And all of a sudden, both double doors for the bank open. They come flying open, and all four guys come running out with their hands in the air in a full sprint. So instead of being the shootout kings that they were supposed to be, they were complete pussies. And they are running at full speed with their hands in the air as fast as they can from the FBI SWAT guys. The FBI SWAT guys, all tactical, all that gear, the 50 pounds of gear and vest and submachine guns, and they couldn't catch them because these guys just take off running. No one expected they'd just start running. We were going to have a shootout. So these four idiots just scatter all over the place. The one I caught was in a snowbank. He fell into a snowbank as we pulled up to him. One guy.
So the snowbank caught him.
Yeah, pretty much.
Real.
It certainly wasn't anything I did. I'll tell you that much. The other two were running across the parking lot, and street cops from Bloomington caught him. And then one guy ran across 494, and if you've seen 494 during rush hour,
Jesus,
he ran across 494. Ran across onto the Penn and 494 side, where a Richfield sergeant saw him as he was carjacking someone and starting to get in their car. And then the Richfield sergeant took him into custody. But the video was just so funny. And the buildup, it was hours and days of buildup of these guys. It's heat. There's going to be a shootout. They're dangerous. We know they're good for it, blah, blah, blah. They take over. They go in the bank. Pause.
It was just like a Benny Hill scene.
Pause. It was. And then boom, the doors open and four guys with their hands up and these FBI guys trying to chase them. So, yeah. Anyway, that's that story. Yeah.
My faith make a movie of this robbery here.
Yeah.
They should do
if
that one.
you could have put the Benny Hill soundtrack, it would have been perfect.
That would have been perfect. Okay, now this is the next one here is the one I'm just because I'm a gore guy. Lady cut in half story.
Oh yeah. It's a short one, and
yes, now she is.
Yeah, she's a half pint. And it was more of an observation because that wasn't my call. I wasn't on the traffic unit at the time. Our traffic unit did the investigation. But there's a suicidal lady about 90 years old, and there was a train that usually parked at 94th and Lindale area, and the train would just park. She knew it was there, and one day she just wandered over, decided that was the end, and she laid down under one of the train wheels, and when the train started out, it ran her over. But when a train starts out, it's very slow. So it ran her over, and then about 10 feet later, another one ran her over, and then about 10 feet later, another one ran her over. So, and then someone goes, there's someone on the tracks, so they stop the train, which takes a while. So by the time they got to her, the wheels had run her over completely. And it had flattened her and cauterized her so that her upper torso was on one side of the rail. Her lower torso was in between the two rails. And she was completely cauterized, no blood, nothing. Right. Except the wheel would grab part of her gut pile, and as it rotated, put it down the tracks about 5 feet. And then it would rotate again, and there was more gut pile every 5 feet.
Was she alive?
No, she's dead. Okay. And I'm guessing, it was a very slow. A train starts out slowly, and that's maybe she saw it got a little momentum and threw herself down. But even then,
I bet she was rethinking that whole plan after wheel one.
Oh my God! Yeah, that was it. Was just
she's like, because I've heard stories. A friend of ours has a podcast, Gabe Noah, a very funny podcast. If anybody else.
Confession. We're not promoting it, by the way. Listen to this instead.
Yeah, we are. No. If you like this podcast, listen to Confession with Gabe Noah. But I can't remember what episode it was, but they were talking about, I think somebody got hit by a bus or something, and the body got crunched. But sometimes the people can live.
Oh, yeah.
Their body will be trapped, and as they move, the body, they'll be dead because then everything will be.
You don't open up those wounds. It's stopping the blood for a while.
Yeah, so she's really lucky that she didn't. Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that was gory. Yeah.
Oh,
Funny story, I know. Very funny.
But
Loved it.
90 years old, like
I don't.
you're in it. You're in the game that long. Come on. Just
I don't know what
take a
led
couple
to
more
her.
at bats and just be done.
It's bizarre. Maybe she's, my dad has Alzheimer's. Maybe she's in the stages of Alzheimer's where she's conscious enough to know that you just don't want to go on.
Right.
I don't know, but yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know. I never did.
Maybe she overheard about somebody about pulling a train on somebody, and she maybe misunderstood.
Well, she
Like,
was
that
that
sounds
age.
good.
That,
I was somebody pull a train on me.
Try one of those trains. Poor little
Going to
dear.
hell for that one.
Yeah,
That's cool
I think
enough.
so.
How about the checking the time here? We're good. Crazy suicide as opposed to a totally sane suicide.
Yeah, well, this one was crazy. Christmas, skeleton crew, and massive snowstorm. Again, the watch commander, lucky me. And someone called 911 saying, and there's no one will know where the BLN office building, but it's right across the Mall of Amerika. And this was after they'd had some pretty high-profile ambushes of cops. So I was on kind of heightened alert for that anyway. But this guy calls 911 and he says, I just saw a guy shot in the BLN office park. And our dispatcher said, what are you talking about? Where are you? And he just started getting more cryptic. Can you describe him? No. And he hung up.
Oh, I see what's going
Yeah.
on.
And so in my mind, I'm thinking ambush. And we're all racing over there. But it was a massive snowstorm. This is before we all had four-wheel drives. And so we're all slipping and sliding in the snow and no one can get there. And come to find out, this guy, he called in his own suicide. And so by the time we got there, he had just shot himself.
Right.
And
Why you got to be all clever like that? Why
I
don't you
don't
say,
know.
"Hey, I'm
Yeah,
getting ready to kill
yeah.
myself"?
It was
Put
weird
the cops at ease.
because we were.
No, don't rush. I know it's dangerous to drive in the snow.
I don't want
I'm
you
gonna
guys
kill
scratching
myself.
up those cars.
Right?
Yeah, it was, and I remember just the feeling of getting there and how crazy it was because I thought we were getting, and I kept warning guys, watch out! I want you to bring your rifles.
Well, then when you get there, you see a dead body. Then you automatically have to go in defense. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
a suspect somewhere, and you got to put it together. Wait a minute, this guy
Yeah.
probably killed himself.
So I remember, the first guy got there, and sure enough, there's one guy in a car. There's no one around. There's one set of footprints. It's got to be him. It's a suicide. And we get there, and he's still alive. And so it's me and this one cop. And
Oh, really?
If
Oh,
you've ever, well, you probably haven't, but if you've ever been around someone who's shot in the head with massive trauma, that smell of that iron-rich blood, the steam coming off of him, and he was still doing that snoring, death breathing, whatever.
Been around somebody dying after a car accident. But I
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
death gurgle and that. Yeah, I know
the
that.
worst. And the steam coming off that blood. And I remember the medics were coming there, and I just kept thinking, honestly, this guy does not want to be alive at this time, please. And the cop's like, we should do CPR. I'm like, no, we're not doing CPR. You're not going to save him.
Where was the entry wound at?
I don't know. It was massive, the trauma. So I don't know. I'm guessing he put it under his chin.
Oh, okay.
Most of his head was gone.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, it was anyway. But yeah, I just maybe probably not visually a great story, or maybe when telling the story, not a great story. But it's just
If he lived, he would definitely have to wear a hat. From here on.
a boonie hat, probably. Yeah, I don't think you want a baseball over that guy. So yeah, it's just. But the crazy things people do, and I listened to the 911 tape, and yeah, as he was having the chat with the dispatcher, it was really creepy. You knew there was something going on. She knew there was something going on.
Right.
We didn't know. We assumed it was an ambush.
Did you ever figure out what the reason was? What was the cause?
No. And to be honest, when I was in patrol, we just, all right, let's go to the next call. Not much you can do about that.
Really?
So you never really hear what happened or what, like the lady with the train. I don't know. I'm sure she had reasons. I'm sure they figured something out.
Yeah.
Never heard.
Does that bother you after a while,
Yeah,
not knowing
sometimes.
backstories, or do
Yeah.
you just get kind of used to it after a while?
Sometimes, on the other hand, you probably did 5 other crazy things later that day, and that was just. Yeah.
I asked that because a job I had briefly a few years ago was working at a hotel, driving a hotel shuttle.
Huh.
And when I was working there, a kid had a seizure
Mm-hmm.
in the hot tub. And I say kid, he was like either late teens or very early 20s.
Uh-huh.
And, I was one of the first people that responded there.
Oh, yeah.
So it was me dragging him out of the water,
Mm-hmm.
and I new CPR kind of. Mm-hmm. So I'm
you know how to kiss people.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, the new CPR is just hands.
Yeah, right.
But it's a lot easier.
And they were like, "No, Joey, this is new CPR." I'm like, "No, I want to kiss him."
Yeah. I'm glad it was the new CPR because he had just. I don't want to. Well, I guess I say this is going to kind of give it away, but the hotel I worked at gave away cookies.
Oh no!
And he had eaten cookies, and he was vomiting up cookie.
Yep.
And so I'm glad I didn't have to do that. But we did chest compressions. Another employee came. He knew CPR, so we were kind of swapping off. By the time EMS and firemen got there and everything, they took over. But I never got the.
Oh, you never heard if he made it? I'm sure he didn't. But
so I never knew.
He didn't make it. I'll tell you right now, Joey, he didn't make it.
He didn't?
I've done CPR many times. He didn't make it. Yeah.
That's always bugged me, though.
There you go. You have your answer.
Yeah, probably didn't.
Yeah. That's a bummer. You could probably find out.
I kind of like, the mystery is in, like, because I don't want to know if he didn't make it.
He grew up. He had 3 babies, and he's now works for Trump.
Right? Oh, well, I'm glad he's dead. Sorry.
Amen.
All right, we're getting close on time here. What's you'd say you want to talk about the taser story?
Yeah. Well, I got a whole bunch of them, but that's a good one to close on too. But
yeah,
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Taser story. I want to talk about the crash story too. I think that one's kind of interesting too. But which one do you think is best to end on?
Well, I got to tell you, it's probably the crash then.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me briefly the story, because you had a big hand in bringing taser usage to the police here in the area.
Yeah.
So that's important.
So Bloomington didn't have a taser program, and I thought we needed it. Right. I put together a position paper, I researched it, and I demonstrated and got demo tasers and showed the command staff why. This is before everyone had them. We were one of the early adopters, but definitely a little way too far behind the curve in my mind. And we ended up getting tasers. And so I was the adopter of the program and the creator of the program. I didn't end up being one of the taser instructors, however. So I was very eager to use my taser because they're kind of fun.
Right.
So first time I got in a foot chase, we were allowed to use them during foot chases. And the adrenaline got the better of me, and I wasn't thinking this is kind of a one shot and you're out. So the guy took off running. I deployed my taser. I missed and ended up in a very long foot chase and finally catching him. Yay. So then the next deal, we were at the Mall of Amerika. We had a big fight with a guy, and I had like 4 cops fighting with this guy, getting him in custody on the East Main level. And they were just about to get him in custody. I go, guys, I'm going to use my taser. So everyone off. And Sarge says, everyone off. So everyone got off. I pull my taser out. I shoot the guy at the taser, and he was wearing a really heavy winter coat. So the darts didn't work. So he got up and he took off running.
Right.
So
it's thanks, coppers.
Yeah, hey, that's a really smart sergeant. We pretty much had him in custody, and dipshit me wants to use the taser.
Right.
And because I have the authority to order everyone off, and they listen, which they shouldn't have. And so
that's one of those ones you're glad cops isn't there filming.
I know. Well, there was video of it. That's the best part because it gets better. So he takes off running with my taser attached, and I'm trying to. You can keep tasing him,
right?
And knowing that because it's called a disconnect when the 2 probes don't contact the skin, and because of his heavy winter jacket, I figured as he's running, maybe it'll kind of reconnect. It hit just right as he's running. And so I'm tasing him the whole time, running after him. 3 other cops are running after him. It's a crowded Saturday night at the Mall of Amerika, and I'm tasing, and I'm outrunning him. So I'm catching up to him, but the taser wires are 20 feet long, 21 actually, and they are not protected by plastic or rubber.
Oh, so it's current all
yes.
the way through it.
So as I'm running, I'm overtaking him. The slack in the wires is dragging on the ground, and I step on the slack for the wires, and I tase myself as I'm running. So my foot hits it, and just automatically I let go of everything I'm holding, which is my taser. And it was brief. I didn't fall or anything, but I'm like, go. And
was your nickname Keystone?
Dipshit.
Was that?
Yeah, I think you just had to call me Chuck, and everyone's like, oh yeah, he's an idiot. So he's running with my taser still attached through the parking lot of the Mall of Amerika, and I can see the taser by 21-foot leads of basically string following him on the ground, and he's got my $700 piece of taser as he's running through Mall of Amerika, and I'm now chasing my taser. I don't give a shit about him. I just know my taser is attached to him as he's running. So we end up getting him in custody, but yeah, the video was hilarious. I have the video of me stepping on the thing and the taser going flying.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And then the next taser call I had, I lined it up, and I remember telling myself, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2. And the guy took off running, and I was ready for him. He had felony warrants. 2 other cops were arresting him. And I said, he's going to run. And you could just tell. So I was all ready. The minute he took off running, I just lined it up and very patiently counted 1, 2, 3, pop, got him. And he just did a Superman, fell on his face, and that was the end of that. And then the last call of my police career, same thing. Guy took off running, lined it up, got him. He fell. And then he was about 21 feet from me when he fell. When he fell, it's just at the final length of that wire, and one of the things popped out. So he got control of his muscles and took off running. And I ended up chasing this guy down and just about caught him, slipped on the pavement, and broke my shoulder. And that was the end of my police career.
Wow.
Yeah, that call. So, but I have a great picture of the taser dart sticking in his ear. So there was some justice. So I retired after that.
Well, that brings us to the last story. And your broken shoulder isn't your most bad injury.
No, one broken bone, broken shoulder.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us about you were a motorcycle cop at one point.
Yeah.
And tell us about this one.
Well, I talked about at the beginning, I was obsessed with chips. So my whole goal, my whole life was to be a motorcycle cop in Minnesota. Makes sense because we have 2 good months. So I developed our motorcycle program, convinced the department to start a motorcycle program. And for 10 years, they had a motorcycle program, which I was not part of.
I saw a motorcycle cop this last winter in the wintertime with a sidecar.
Oh, funeral.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, probably funeral escort. There are some private security companies that do that.
Okay.
But yeah, the actual...
I saw it driving down the highway. I was like, what the fuck? Really?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
You're dedicated.
Yeah. You give me... Well,
Okay.
I've driven in February on a police motor. It was cold.
Okay.
Below 0. But I started that program, never got to be a part of it for about 10 years. And my last... well, not my last, but one of my last years as a police officer, I was in charge of the traffic unit, and I got awarded the job of the traffic supervisor. Take home motorcycle, take home police car.
What kind of bike are you driving?
Harley Davidson Electra Glide. Yeah, beautiful motorcycle.
How many cc?
I think they were 1,300.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big bike.
Yeah, it was massive, and we could do. I mean, I went through the school for it, and hardest school I've ever taken. We could do incredible things on those things. But yeah, that was my life. I loved that job. I lived for that job. I remember at the time I was married, I told my wife, I said, I finally love my job again. This is great. Just riding around, writing tickets. Doing God's work, Joey. Doing God's work. So it was great. It was the greatest job ever. Worked a ton of overtime. I was in charge of the unit. I got to create my own overtime, and I just go out and write tickets, and easily paid for myself and then some. But it was a wonderful, beautiful, sunny day, September 3rd, 2009, 3:07 p.m. That's another 3:07 call, and we had a call of a crash with injuries, and the traffic unit was in charge of going to crashes with injuries. So I hopped on. So on the phone with my ex-wife at the time, I said, I got to take this call, honey. I'll call you back. Just like they do in the movies. I'll call you right back, honey. And I got on my motorcycle, and I go racing away, lights and siren, to go to this call. And so...
Doing wheelies, I assume.
Of course, yeah.
Well.
I mean, and... So I'm racing to this call. And
Nobody under 30 is going to get that.
Yeah, that's Chips. There was a movie
song.
once called Chips. It was,
that's right. They did do a remake of the movie.
Oh, it looked terrible.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, there was no violence and no boobs.
Oh.
So I went to this call. It was the whole traffic unit was going to this call. It was actually a pretty minor call. I don't know where we were all going, but lights and siren, accident with injuries, and it was rush hour. It was crowded, and there's a police motorcycle in front, a police traffic SUV next, and then me. And there was a beautiful, adorable, and I know she was Asian, that's a fact, Asian woman who panicked and slammed on her brakes in the middle of the road and just came to a stop. And the car, I was driving behind the police car. The first motorcycle made it through, no problem. The second police car was too close to her, nearly hit her, jammed on his brakes, and I jammed on my brakes. And my only memories of this whole call, by the way, are me telling my ex that I was going to go to this call, me driving by the police station for about half a second with my lights and siren on, and me just about not hitting the police car in front of me, just for a second, go, yep, I'm going to hit. And I woke up in the ambulance. So what happened is I just barely hit that police car, and I was doing maybe 30 miles an hour at that point, and it flipped me off the motorcycle.
So you did basically like an endo, the front of the bike hit it.
Yeah, and it
You
just
went
kind of
over.
deflected. Well, actually, it deflected me into the median, and as that happened, the motorcycle hit the median and came to a dead stop.
Okay.
And then I flipped off the motorcycle, went flying like 20 feet in the air.
Wow.
And then I landed under another motorcycle. Well, as the motorcycle now, I guess, slid forward and hit this other motorcycle, stopped in the left turn lane. As I flew through the air, this is all happening at once, and I landed underneath him, completely unconscious,
Jeez.
with my arm cooking under his burning tailpipe. His back now broken, and me completely unconscious cooking under that motorcycle in front of, I don't know how many people saw it. And
You have Harley Davidson permanently branded in your arm now?
I think, well, you've seen the scars. They're adorable. Yeah, so I was knocked unconscious. I had a brain injury, cracked my skull open.
Jesus.
Broke my back, broke 8 ribs, broke, well, I had 13 broken bones. I'm trying to remember what else I broke. Back, 8 ribs, head, collarbone. I don't know, a total 13 bones. Lost my hearing, and I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. So I was doing that thing. If you ever seen someone with like a major seizure, it's also a major brain injury,
right,
where all their limbs are curling up and they're doing this real,
like when you get knocked out in the UFC fights or something, and they get stiff and they just kind of
yeah, and I mean, it never looks good. So I was doing that.
Jesus.
They loaded me in the ambulance, and away I went, code 3, down to the hospital. I woke up at one point on that ride just for a second, and I remember one of my partners over me, Chuck, you okay? Okay, you're gonna be okay. And woke up in the hospital, and that was it. 3 weeks in the hospital, and came out to a whole different life. So, and went back to work.
I was gonna say, but you went back to work after that one.
What a dipshit! I should have retired. I could have retired. I had a brain injury, and I've never recovered from that, as you can see.
Clearly.
As you can see.
You're here with me.
I'm doing
decision making, not
bullshit.
Good, right?
But I went back to work, and I think my time, I was, a cop's cop at the time, and I really wanted to prove to the world I could go back to work. So about 3 months later, I went back to light duty, and 5 months later, I was back to full duty.
Jesus.
And but it just wasn't the same. The job wasn't the same. Motorcycles weren't the same. I didn't hear as well. I'm still wearing a hearing aid. I mean, it's just things were not the same, and I should have left, but I didn't.
Where are you at now physically? Are you, any residual shit?
Yeah, I had another surgery. I still have. I always say surgery is my hobby. I had another surgery back in February on my elbow because my right hand has neuropathy really bad from this crash.
What does that mean?
It means you're numb.
Okay.
Yeah, lack of feeling. It's like a pinched nerve. They've done 3 surgeries on that. I've had 2 surgeries for my shoulder from that other incident I told you about, and I wear a hearing aid, which is awesome. And let me tell you what. Once you have cracked 8 ribs, things really hurt when you do the wrong thing. Just if I don't stretch right, the muscles are all realigned. Everything is just goofy. If I don't stretch right, I can just agonizing pain when something locks up in my ribs. It's hard to explain, but it's
and you're just going to be stuck with that then.
Yeah, I think that's what I am. I get a sweet pension.
Right.
Yeah, my ex-wife gets 21% of it. She deserves every penny of it. But yeah, I get a sweet pension, and that's about it. So here I sit.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're alive, though. So that's good.
I'm alive, and I'm doing real estate now, which is a wonderful job. I love it. I'm damn good at it. And it's not police work, and I absolutely love what I do now. And I've just, other than talking about this today, I don't really talk about it, don't really think about it. And it's just something I did for a little while, 25 years.
Don't miss it, though?
I don't. It's these are great stories, and it's great meeting up with some old friends once in a while, but I've just really moved on personally. It was my life for 25 years, and I'm so glad it's not my life at all anymore. Yeah, it's wonderful. They're great stories, but especially in this current era of policing, and this current era and the scrutiny cops are under, I'm really glad I'm not part of that. It's fun to read the headlines and just say I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for coming in and talking about it, man.
Thanks for letting me be cathartic. I didn't cry once. Did I cry?
No, not yet.
Okay.
The day's still young, though, so give us some
sorry.
time.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That was my conversation with a cop. That cop's name was Chuck Gollop. Chuck Gollop, comedian, retired police officer, real estate mogul. Feel free to go check him out at chuckgollopcomedy.com. chuckgollopcomedy.com. Find out where he's performing at. find links to videos and all that cool stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys think was I too easy on him in the get-go? I wasn't my normal fiery self when I come to discussing the epic failures of the U.S. legal system and law enforcement. I don't know. Like I said, Chuck's a friend of mine. It wasn't that type of podcast, but I do feel like I was definitely hitting him up on a few of the issues, a few of the hot button type things, and challenging him on a few things. I don't know, man. I think it's like anything else. Just like people are, committed to their political party, their sports team, or things like that. Chuck was a cop. I think once you're a cop, you're always a cop, that kind of mentality type thing. I will tell you this, though. Since I've been talking to him, and since I've known him, I want to say, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm creating this in my own head, but it feels like to me that he has changed a little bit or has been more open to different points of view when it comes to people challenging different areas. And I don't know if that just means that he's kind of realized some of the stuff, or he's just got to the point where so much just become so indefensible now. I don't know. He's a cop, though, right? I feel like he became a cop for the right reasons, right? And he wanted to be somebody to do good, right? So I don't fault him for wanting to defend, what he was and what he was. I understand that completely. I think we all do that. Whatever we align ourselves with, whatever we claim to be a part of, whatever it is, right? Like I would probably, defend a lot about comedy that, maybe some people would be in question because, I love comedy and being involved in comedy is part of me. So therefore I feel the need to defend it, beyond whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad example, but I think it's the same thing for, for good cops. Does that excuse, good cops looking the other way when it comes to bad cops? No. And me saying that does not mean that I'm not suggesting that Chuck ever has or ever would. But I'm just saying I understand, in this ongoing debate right now about, law enforcement and the quote unquote war on cops and all that crap. I get it, man, because I want to think that most people who become law enforcement officers get in there and join, a police department or whatever because they want to do some kind of good, and they probably don't think about or don't believe the idea of there being so much negative in law enforcement before, and maybe they just want to not believe it after that. After you commit yourself to something, you make a lot of effort, be it through education, through training or whatever, and you get hyped up about it, and it's something that you're proud of as an individual. I don't know. Sometimes, subconsciously we just look away, in our minds from things like that. I don't know. I've met other cops. I've met, a handful of really good cops that are really good people. I've met, cops that have done good things for me and have been kind to me. So I can't throw away every single police officer and just throw them into a group. I know there's varied degrees of good cops, bad cops, and the in between cops, and all that shit. So I don't know. So if you don't think I was hard enough on Chuck, just understand that's not what this podcast was about. Chuck's a good dude. For as well as I know him, he's a good dude, and I like the guy. Definitely want to have him on again. Yeah, that was the conversation with him. That's what I wanted to get out of it. Just wanted to get a different perspective on some things, and I thought we did that as well too. All right. Anything else before I wrap up here? I don't know. Thank our sponsor again. Simplewebsite.us. That's the place you need to go if you need help with your Squarespace website building. Boom. Also, what else? What did I talk about in the beginning? Oh yeah. If you want to be a guest on Filter Free America, definitely looking for new guests as long as you can be within the Twin Cities area. I'm not going to go to like Florida or anything. Well, if you send me a ticket and fly me out there to record an episode, boom, I'm doing that. I mean, definitely. Okay. I will come to you in that case. Like if you fly me out to some, location, put me up in a nice place. It could be your crib, as long as you get a nice crib. I don't want to stay in like a mobile home or anything. Then I'll come to you. But if not, you need to be within the Twin Cities area, right? and have a good story. Maybe you want to talk about the job that you do or something that happened in your life, whatever. Just message me at filterfreeamerica@gmail.com. America misspelled with a K. And we'll talk about it and see if we can get you to on an episode. What is another reminder? Boom, 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 boom. Oh, yeah. Subscribe, rate, review. Subscribe, rate, review. Everybody tells me that's the magic thing you got to do to help a podcast grow. So if you enjoy this show in the slightest, in a little bit, please subscribe, rate, and review. That's all I ask. That's all I want. I don't need any money. None of that shit. Yeah, I guess that's it. I love you guys. You guys are wonderful fellow human beings. I care about you. I hope you're healthy, successful, and all that good shit. I hope you're doing well in life and all things. Spade and neuter your pets and children. Keep seeking the truth, and I will see you next episode. Bye-bye.